Before we go live, I'd just like to say this is quite exciting. Having been a backbencher 2 months ago and now back up here. So thank you very much for your confidence in me. I know, indeed. When addressing the council, to enable the microphone, please press the middle button, which will turn green, and the microphone will light up red at the top. Please also remember to press the middle button when you have finished speaking. It is particularly important that all members use their microphones so that the audio can be picked up by the live stream. In the event of a fire alarm sounding during the meeting, please stand and follow the meeting administrator to the fire evacuation point outside the building. I would also like to remind members that this meeting is being live streamed on the council's YouTube channel. I'd like to politely remind all members that due to the nature of the council's camera and microphone tracking system, it's possible that you may appear on camera at times when you may not necessarily be addressing the council. For example, when the cameras are panning around the room. Please be mindful of this at all times and act appropriately, including when your use of your mobile phones. Thank you. Okay, so let's get to it. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've had apologies from Councillors Brereton, Butler, Davenport Ray, Dew, Tevlin and Wells, and we've also got Councillor Catmer joining us online as well this evening.
Okay, thank you. Next is thought for the day. Will members please remain seated for a prayer to be offered by the Reverend Nick Witham, Methodist Church Minister at St Ives Methodist Church. So if you'd like to come and...
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a great honour to be here, to be leading prayers. First time I've been here, so do bear with me. I want to tell you a very quick story. It's a story that appeared in the church calendar this Sunday, and it goes, I'm sure you'll recognise it. It goes something like this. It says that there's a guy who comes to Jesus, a sort of clergy of the day, and says that, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said, well, you're supposed to be the expert, you know. And he says, yeah, okay, it's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. And Jesus goes, you've got it spot on. And then he gets a bit cocky and he says, well, who is my neighbour then? And Jesus tells the parable of the Good Samaritan. And it goes a little bit like this. It says there's a guy walking down from Jerusalem to Jericho, really high crime area, massive high crime area. Right, the police have put dispersal orders in place. The council have put extra lighting in, but it's still pretty awful. Guy walks down there and he gets robbed and beaten up and left for dead. Priest comes past, goes by on the other side. Assistant priest goes past, goes by on the other side. Samaritan comes past, helps him up, administers first aid, puts him in the car, takes him down to the local hospital, pays for his medical bills, etc. Jesus says, who was it then that acted like the neighbour? Well, the teacher of the law, he can't even bear to say the word Samaritan because Jews and Samaritans hate each other. So he can't even bear to say the word Samaritan. So what he says is the guy who showed mercy to the one in need. And Jesus says, go and do the same. Well, tiny bit of context into this, bear with me, is that the teacher of the law, he wants Jesus to confirm to him a list of the people he has to love and a list of the people that he doesn't. Because in Jewish law, there was a whole big group of people that they're not supposed to have anything to do with. So, and that would be really convenient, wouldn't it? To have a list of the people that you have to love and a list of the people that you don't. Because all the people you don't like and all the people you don't think deserve it, not on the list. Don't have to. But that parable reminds us that we don't have that luxury. We don't have a luxury of not loving the people that we just don't like or the people we think that don't deserve it. And so I'm going to pray. I know that not all of you will want to pray with me, but I'm going to pray just about that. and then I'll leave you to your meeting. So let's pray. Lord, we thank you for that story. We thank you for that story of love and love for our neighbour. And we ask that you would encourage us to have compassionate hearts for those who are in need. The Lord, that love and compassion for others will invade our thinking and invade our action this night while we bring this meeting to you and for your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you for that thought of the day. So we'll now move on to item 2, which is the minutes. Is everyone agreed that I sign the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 15th of May as a true and accurate record? Thank you. Item 3, members' interests. Are there any interests that members would like to declare in relation to any item on tonight's agenda? Councillor Corney.
Thank you, Chair. Item 9, purely interest, the nature of my business.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Item 9. That's Councillor Hodgson. Can you put your microphone on, please? And that's Councillor Hodgson Jones. Are we waiting? Anyone else? Item 13. Okay, thank you. Can you repeat the nature for the council?
It's pecuniary interest in item 13.
Brilliant, thank you. Sorry, it's just procedural. Councillor Niche.
Glad I've just spoken up. Item 13 as well. Pecuniary.
Okay, thanks. Okay, all right, thank you. Item 4 is Chair and Vice Chair's engagements. But before I do that, I'd just like to take this opportunity to welcome Anita O'Malley, who is Head of Democratic Services and Monitoring Officer, to her first meeting with the Council. I'm sure members will join me in welcoming Anita to Huntingdonshire and her new role.
Chair.
I'd also like to thank Tom Lewis, who did sterling work in her place on the project he's been working on. So thank you, Tim. So there's a list of Chair's engagements listed on page 13 in your agenda. These engagements the Chair has undertaken since the previous council meeting, and engagements from before the state were undertaken by the previous Chair, Councillor McAdam. Okay, item number 5 is a notice of motion. So may I invite Councillor Hunt to move his motion on the Ask Angela scheme and to open the debate which will follow, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've put forward this motion as it's something I care about deeply and personally, and I believe this is an area where this council can make a real difference. Everyone in our district deserves to be safe wherever they are, including in licensed establishments. Unfortunately, for so many, that isn't always the case. Safety in the evening and nighttime economy is absolutely vital, whether someone is in the village local, a bar in a market town, or anywhere else. As a young person especially, we can often feel disproportionately unsafe while in licensed venues. Unfortunately, I have a wealth of personal experience from both myself and my friends to back that up, from places both inside and outside of Huntingdonshire. Challenges like this prevent people from going and supporting extremely valuable local businesses in a sector which is on the brink. I'm very aware that this is a problem which spans so many areas of responsibility and policy. There's the national angle and the overall regulations which venues are held to nationally. I'm proud to have supported campaigns which call for wider action on drink spiking with my work in the Young Liberals. There's the police, who are constantly having to try and do more with less following a decade of cuts. And there's the cultural angle and the standards of people, behaviour we expect from people. And realistically here, often but not exclusively men. But there is an area where we can have an impact here. And that's through how we review our licensing policy and supporting the Ask for Angela scheme. I'm sure most of you will know what Ask for Angela is and how it works. However, for those who aren't aware, Ask for Angela is a scheme run by a venue that allows anyone feeling unsafe for any reason to speak to a member of staff and use a code word, Angela, to discreetly get help. This can either help them get away from a dangerous or uncomfortable situation or raise concerns with staff. Behind this, the scheme is also backed up with staff training, support, and other resources from the Ask for Angela campaign. Quite a few places in Huntingdonshire currently operate the scheme, and some do it quite well. However, many venues don't, and some venues can end up advertising that they do run the scheme, but to run it poorly or not at all. A BBC investigation at the end of last year highlighted that this was a problem across many parts of the country. This is where we can come in as a council. HDC will be reviewing its licensing policy later this year. As part of that review, we can explore how HDC can support the proper operation of Ask for Angela in Huntingdonshire. We can encourage more businesses to take up the scheme and support customers and residents. We can encourage more, we can use our own communication channels as a council to raise further public awareness of the scheme, making sure people know how to use it when it's needed. And we can reach out to partners and neighbours with more experience of the scheme in their areas, so we can learn from them and work out what our area can do better. Doing this helps break down some of the barriers that make many people feel unsafe. It's not a silver bullet, but it's a massive step in the right direction and helps support people support brilliant local businesses across our district. So for that reason, I urge council to support this motion and support these tangible, common sense steps in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I take it that it's your motion you'd like to propose.
Yes, I would like to move and propose the motion, please.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a second of that motion? Councillor Harvey, thank you. And I'm told that Councillor Ferguson would like to respond on this.
Thank you, Chair. I'm responding as the portfolio holder for licensing. So obviously I'm going to wholeheartedly support this motion. The Ask for Angela scheme is a simple but effective tool that gives people, and in particular women, a discreet and practical way to seek help when they feel unsafe in bars, pubs and clubs. The need for this was rather distressingly brought home to me last week when I had the misfortune of watching 24 Hours in Police Custody, which covered the case of 34-year-old Peterborough rapist Craig France, who drugged, sexually abused and sometimes raped multiple young women in Peterborough nightclubs, many of whom were completely unaware of their ordeals until the police showed them covertly filmed footage of their ordeals. That's a really, really distressing, and I'd recommend that people don't watch it actually because it really upset me. So like Councillor Hunt said, we know this isn't a silver bullet for tackling harassment or predatory behaviour, but it empowers individuals to take control of a situation that might otherwise escalate, either from themselves or maybe a friend who's also in trouble or a stranger. In that sense, it's a valuable part of a wider approach to making public spaces safer. So I'm especially pleased that this motion commits us to doing more than just paying lip service, as motions often do. It proposes embedding the scheme into our licensing policy as best practice, providing support and guidance to venues on staff training, and using our communications channels to raise public awareness. And I think that last point is critical because a scheme like this only works if people know it exists, both the customers who might need it and the staff who are expected to respond. So by raising awareness and learning from neighbouring councils who are already doing this well, we can help ensure that it's not just a poster in toilets, but a real safety net for vulnerable people in the district. I'm also delighted to say, whether we vote for this or not tonight, that the new statement of licensing is going to go for consultation August and September, and the licence team are already committed to including the Ask for Angela scheme in that policy. Obviously, it has to go for consultation, still has to be approved there, and will directly address all of the points made in this motion and have agreed to work in the meantime before that comes into place. Anybody who comes forward for licensing would also be recommended to adopt the Ask for Angela scheme. So I think your support today will be very helpful in making sure that is embedded in our future licensing policy. So I'm very happy to support this motion. I'd encourage you all to do the same. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Corley.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to begin by thanking Councillor Hunt for bringing this motion, this very important motion regarding Ask for Angela. I fully recognise the need to keep our community safe, particularly in places where individuals and especially women are feeling vulnerable. The motion outlines a clear path for the Council to support the proper operation of the scheme. But I want to express my broad support for the motion, as I believe that the implementation of the scheme will help make our community safer, especially for those who might feel most vulnerable in social environments. However, while I support the principles of the initiative, I do have some concerns I'd like to raise, which I believe the council should consider as we move forward. So firstly, the potential increased workload for the council. And I'm glad to hear that we're not just paying lip service, that we're going to embed this, and it's useful to hear Councillor Ferguson's statement. So can we please make sure that as we go forward, we're building in a plan to ensure that there is enough resource within our teams to make sure this is actually something real and not just paying lip service, as someone said. We need to understand what the potential increase in administrative costs will be so that we can plan accordingly. So I encourage us to make sure that is part of our forward planning. There's also the risk of misuse. I'm aware of various reports, and you can see them on the BBC, of certain places in London where this has been implemented, and many people sadly use this as a reason to get out of paying their bills, believe it or not, in a pub or a bar by calling wolf, as we say. So can we just make sure that the council works with local venues to ensure that the scheme is only being used in genuine cases of distress? I'm not quite sure how we do that, but I think we need to consider that as well. There's also the risk of it becoming a tick box exercise, which others have mentioned, and we don't want that to happen. For it to be meaningful, we need to make sure that the scheme doesn't simply become a public relations tool for both the venues or ourselves, for that matter, but for something that generally improves safety. So I would ask one thing: can we just make sure there will be specific measures that the council will put in place to ensure businesses are not just ticking boxes, but truly engaging with the scheme, providing meaningful support and some sort of measure of its effectiveness, please? And finally, the council's role in supporting the implementation, which Councillor Ferguson has mentioned in terms of supporting that wider adoption. I agree it's crucial for us to raise awareness amongst the public through our communication channels, and I'm glad to see that. This will ensure that people know how to use the scheme and feel confident in doing so. However, as it's become clear from some of the reports I've seen on the internet, because of the notorious staff turnover in the hospitality industry, they have a very high turnover, as I understand it. How can we make sure that those staff that we have had trained initially, and that is being passed on? Because again, I'm seeing lots of reports of new staff start, nobody told me, I don't know what that's about, it's just a nice poster. That's assuming the poster's still there after all that time. So while I strongly support the Ask for Angela scheme and its potential to enhance safety in our community, I would urge the council to approach its implementation with a clear action plan. We need to ensure that businesses are properly supported, that staff receive adequate training, and that there is an ongoing mechanism for evaluating the implementation and success of the scheme across Huntingdonshire. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bywater.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thanks to Councillor Hunt for bringing this. It's actually, with two hats that I wear as a councillor, it's actually nice to see a motion that we can actually be effective rather than just sending a letter to some government minister down in Whitehall. As a retired police officer with years of experience keeping our community safe, I'm standing today to give you my full support to this motion and ask that the Ask Angela scheme is implemented. In my time in the police force, I saw firsthand how vulnerable people, especially women, can be targeted in a nightlife setting. And I also saw how crucial it is to have somewhere that they can feel safe to turn to. That's what Ask Angela provides: a simple, discreet and effective way to ask for help when someone senses danger. This scheme isn't about making assumptions. It's about giving people a tool, a safety net, just a few words to signal that they need support in a vulnerable position. By embedding this into our licensing policy, and I clearly take on board what Councillor Corley said, I think it's crucial that it just doesn't turn into a tick box exercise, but we're sending a proper message that in Huntingdonshire, safety in public spaces, especially bars, pubs and clubs, matters to everybody. That we stand with those who feel vulnerable, and that we expect our licensed venues to do the same. I urge the council, as you've heard from other members, to back this motion, to take meaningful steps to introduce Ask Angela, and so it becomes common practice within our licensed premises, not just good practice and a tick boxing exercise. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Have we got anyone else? Sounds like we're all kind of getting ready to vote on this. All in support. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. I'm proud to second this motion in support of exploring how the council can incorporate the Ask for Angela initiative into its licensing policy, a simple yet profoundly effective safety measure that empowers individuals to discreetly seek help when they feel unsafe, uncomfortable, or at risk in public venues. The need for this initiative is very real, especially for women and members of marginalised communities who experience discomfort or even danger on nights out. Too often, they don't feel there's a safe way to ask for help without drawing unwanted attention. As a mum of 2 children who will be entering the world of dating sooner than I would like, I am grateful that such initiatives exist to protect them and to make their experience safer. In other areas, to address the point about training and making sure that this is done properly, there are mystery shoppers who test the scheme to make sure that it is being done properly. And I'd like to see that rolled out here if that's possible. By backing the motion, we affirm our commitment to safety, dignity, and proactive care. We show that we are willing to take real steps, not just talk, towards making our venues and communities safer for everyone. Influencing our venues to bring in this initiative and to give their staff trainings carried out effectively is the right thing to do to keep our residents safe. Let's not wait until harm happens. Supporting Ask for Angela is a meaningful step in that direction. I'm really pleased to hear that this has got support from across the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Okay, so Councillor Hunt, would you like to reply?
Yes, please. I'll keep it quick, but I just want to say I'm really pleased to hear contributions from across the chamber on this, and I really want to thank Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Macaulay, Councillor Bywater, and Councillor Harvey for what you've added. I think the cross-party support that this motion has received is a really positive sign. I think the point that Councillor Corley raised about the risk of this being a tick box exercise is why I wanted to bring this motion. I think the status quo is that it is often risked as a PR exercise. And I think by embedding this into our licensing policy, I think we can achieve that. So that I'm really pleased by that contribution. And I think the contribution from all members has been really positive. So I think we've sent an extremely positive message as a council this evening, and I look forward to members supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Okay, so shall we move to the vote? So all in favour? That looks unanimous to me. Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving to item 6. This is questions by members of the public. In accordance with council procedure, there's now opportunity for members of the public to ask questions to the executive leader or members of the cabinet. I understand that we have 2 members of the public potentially, although... Okay, so neither have turned up. We do have one written statement from David Landon Cole, though, don't we? Okay, so I shall read these out on behalf of the members of the public who have not turned up. So the first one is from Mr. Ian McLaughlin. So this is in relation to St. Neots Market Square redevelopment. So his question is, why is the loading bay not where the restaurants and businesses are that need it? The loading bays should be where the businesses need them and not completely the other side of the market square. As the portfolio holder, I'd like to ask Councillor Wakeford to respond to that.
Thank you very much. So there's a practical and a principled answer to this question. The practical answer is that the scheme for redeveloping the town centre and the market square in St. Neots that we inherited had a scope set and funding provided on the basis of that scope already. And reviewing and moving the locations of the loading bays and indeed the taxi rank were not part of the project we picked up. The principled explanation, of course, is that loading bays need to serve all businesses, current and future, and potential changes of use among businesses as well in the area. So they're covering the extent of the area as opposed to serving any individual businesses, none of which have a right to a particular loading bay in front of their locations. That said, the approach that we took as a council in our management of the scheme introduced additional consultation and engagement opportunities. We developed the scheme iteratively because we felt that it was important to maximise the value that we got out of the works. We took some flack from some quarters about not just getting on with it in terms of the proposals that we inherited. And we received a number of proposals from businesses around the square suggesting adjustments that we could make, which we did and have improved what we delivered. One of those was from Floored by Ian, who suggested considering loading bay locations, notwithstanding the fact it was outside of the scope of the scheme. We thought he made a good point, at least in part, and agreed with him, though not as much as he might have liked. And we did take the opportunity to swap the locations of one of the loading bays and the taxi rank, which has had the effect of leaving not only the same number of loading bays that the square started with, but one of them closer to his property, and we felt more as well to better space the loading bays around the square. But as for why the locations are as they are, is per the principled answer I gave initially. The final point, of course, which I think isn't explicit in the question, but underlies it, of course, is that we know that there have been issues with misuse of the loading bays, and parking by a minority of people visiting the square has not necessarily respected the use of existing bays, including loading ones. As we might come on to later this evening, of course, having secured civil parking enforcement from the work of this council and the government that has assisted with that, given us a trajectory to introduce it, we will be in a position to enforce against misuse of loading bays to ensure that they are there for the purpose intended to support businesses, current and future, around the square.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I would like to read a question from Mr. David Eden Cole, who's unable to attend this evening, as I'm told. So would the leader, Councillor Sarah Comboy, consider joining the leaders of other councils in asking the Cultural Secretary, Lisa Nandy, to consider changes to the Gambling Act 2005 to make it easier for local authorities to decline applications from gaming establishments?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Mr. Landon Cole for his question. While the Gambling Act of 2005 is generally seen as well regulated, the sector does contribute to our economy. But I do understand the concerns that are generally raised when we are looking at this, and particularly when it comes to planning and licensing. The current legislation does lean in favour of granting applications unless there is strong evidence that the licensing objectives would be undermined. And as you know from Huntingdon, David, were you able to join us in person tonight, all new applications must go through a statutory consultation period, which allows local issues to be raised. In Huntingdonshire, we currently have a relatively small number of licensed premises of this sort, 11 betting shops, 2 adult gaming centres and 1 bingo premises, which is operated via terminals. The most recent application we received was an adult gaming centre at Saltry Service Station in December last year. And before this, it was the bingo premises on Huntingdon High Street back in 2020. I won't be writing to Lisa Nandy on this matter, apart from anything else, because actually, as the leader, that's something that we would need to decide as council. However, I do want to make the commitment that we always make when applications come through, and in fact then in delivery, that if there are any specific concerns that are being raised locally, we are always happy to look into them and take appropriate action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Comboy. Item 7. So again, can I ask our Executive Leader, Councillor Comboy, on behalf of the Joint Administration, to present us the State of the District 2025 and to open debate, which will follow shortly. So I'd like to remind, in accordance to the council procedure, that members may speak once and no speech exceeding 5 minutes in length without consent of the chair. However, I'm told that Councillor Comboy's speech is slightly longer than 5 minutes, so we'd need to suspend normal council procedure. So unless anyone's got any problem with that, we can do it. Otherwise, we need to vote on it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Council, for allowing me to speak for a little longer. The state of the district is not only important for us as councillors and for our residents, it's also really important for our staff. So as much as I've tried to cut this down, there are some things I really think it's important that we say and celebrate this evening. So bear with me. Good evening. 3 years ago, in July 2022, I stood before you for the first time as the newly appointed executive leader of Huntingdonshire District Council. When our joint administration, made up of Liberal Democrat, Independent, Labour and Green councillors, took on the responsibility of leading this council, we did so with a mixture of apprehension, ambition and determination. We were aware of the magnitude of the challenge ahead and the potential for opportunity. This evening, I'm proud to stand before you again, not only to reflect on the journey that we've taken, but to show how far that we have come, a journey marked by change, challenge and meaningful progress, not just in our policies, but for people's lives. This isn't just vision and ambition, it's measurable progress. And this isn't political point scoring, it's about delivering better outcomes together across this chamber. It's about showing residents the difference that purposeful leadership matched with motivated and talented staff makes, and being open about the progress we've made and the challenges we've overcome. Because in the end, what matters most isn't who holds the microphone, but whose lives are made better for it. From day one, we knew that change needed direction, and that's why we introduced Huntingdonshire Futures, our long-term play strategy built around 5 journeys: health embedded, inclusive economy, travel transformed, environmental innovation, and pride in place. This strategy was developed in partnership with our communities, businesses, and stakeholders. It represents the golden thread that runs through everything we do, providing a clear and consistent line of ambition that connects our vision to real-world outcomes. And from that vision, we developed our corporate plan to 2028, which outlines how we deliver our goals and evaluate our successes. It sets out our ambition not only to maintain essential services, but also to achieve more, to be a council that does, enables, and influences. This is about partnership with residents, with businesses, and with community. And we're building a Huntingdonshire where everyone can live well, feel supported, and take pride in the place they call home. So let's begin with the most important outcome of all, improving happiness and the well-being of our residents. We want every person in this district to have the opportunity to thrive. Since 2022, our Huntingdonshire Futures grant scheme has awarded over £80,000 to local businesses and community initiatives, from heritage and culture to local enterprise and well-being. These investments bring our journeys to life and create a deep sense of regional pride. Whether it's finding new activities for young people to get involved with, or offering new local events that bring people together, or helping to enhance and preserve our local heritage, communities have come forward to identify what matters to them, and we have sought to support them. Our Work Well programme, a model not previously available to residents and only one of 15 national trailblazers, has been integrated into the Residents' Advice and Information team at Pathfinder House, offering tailored support for people with health challenges to stay in or return to work. Each month, over 40 residents are helped along their path to employment, and the good news is that the government has just announced the scheme will be extended for 3 more years. And we didn't just sign up. We embedded Work Well into our frontline advice service, enabling joined-up support tailored to our district's needs. And that's what makes the difference: local leadership and local delivery. Investment in our Active Lifestyles programme, which has seen limited expansion prior to 2022, aims at increasing physical activity throughout the district. It's seen attendance in classes surge by 121% in that time. We've also introduced a variety of new and specialised classes, including the Escape Pain Management programme and Active for Health initiatives. Since 2022, more than £2 million has been invested in our One Leisure centres, a significant increase compared to the investment in facilities in the years before. And in 2024-25 year alone, One Leisure allocated £500,000 to enhance health and fitness facilities at One Leisure St Neots and One Leisure St Ives. This included brand new gym equipment, upgraded spin bikes for cycle groups, and aesthetic improvements such as flooring and decor. These enhancements have transformed the centres into market-leading destinations for health and fitness. This targeted investment is helping One Leisure become financially sustainable by ensuring that the facilities not only meet local need, but that they exceed the competition. And it plays a vital role in encouraging more residents to be physically active and support them with their physical and mental health. Further improvements are already underway at Huntingdon One Leisure and Ramsey One Leisure. These continued upgrades will ensure that One Leisure remains well positioned to offer best-in-class facilities and contribute to the health of our communities, as well as bringing long-term financial sustainability to the service. And looking ahead, we're going even further. With £360,000 from the Community Infrastructure Levy, an additional £180,000 from the Council and £60,000 from Saltry Village Academy, we're moving forward with the restoration of Saltry Swimming Pool, bringing yet another vital facility back into use for residents and for the school. Of course, real progress means keeping people out of a crisis before it starts. Proper prevention begins early. Over the last year, our frontline staff received training, in contrast to the previous years when preventative training wasn't standard. This has helped to identify residents in need of support, ensuring early signs of crisis aren't missed. These efforts have earned us full accreditation from the Domestic Abuse Housing Alliance by recognising our dedication to support survivors. The relocation of the Citizens Advice Bureau to Pathfinder House now sees a level of service integration not previously pursued and has improved accessibility and a deeper day-to-day partnership working across our district. We're continuing to develop our working relationships with North West Anglia NHS Foundation Trust and wider health partners, as well as those at the Cambridgeshire County Council, and that's about supporting public services locally. We've refreshed our Community Safety Partnership Action Plan and secured £44,000 in partnership funding, helping us work more closely with the police to tackle violent crime through data-driven approaches and intervention. And you've heard tonight about the Ask Angela scheme and the work that we're really doing around community safety. We've enhanced our local council tax support scheme, simplifying a previously more complex and less generous system to provide more targeted assistance to those who need it the most. And as a result, an additional 2,500 households now receive 100% support. We've also simplified the scheme to make it easier to understand and access, while significantly reducing our waiting times. Since 2022, the average processing time for housing benefit and council tax support claims has fallen by more than 3 days, despite rising demand. Changes in resident circumstances are now processed in just 3.1 days on average, half the time it took 3 years ago. Over the same period, we've also improved the collection performance of our council tax, achieving the highest in-year rate in 5 years during the year 2024-25. Our housing needs team have supported over 1,400 individuals in avoiding homelessness and more than 2,400 households in finding homes through the Housing Register and Home Link. However, sometimes, despite having the best support in place, a crisis can still occur, and how we respond defines us. Our response must always be compassionate and quick. Since 2022, we've welcomed 571 Ukrainian guests to Huntingdonshire under the National Homes for Ukraine scheme, which the government introduced in response to the invasion of Ukraine. Our role has been to provide local support, working closely with hosts, communities and public services to ensure that those fleeing war could settle safely and rebuild their lives. Our wraparound model focused on independence and strong community links has been recognised by both the Home Office and the Ministry of Defence as an example of local effective delivery. And we launched the We Are Huntingdonshire platform, which is a support hub that previously didn't exist. It offers support for finances, health, food, volunteering and employment. It's more than just a website. It's a vital lifeline that helps residents through difficult times. Out of more than 85,000 homes across the district, only a small fraction of households, just over 4,000 since 2022, have required temporary accommodation. Thanks to our strong focus on prevention and rapid support, these numbers continue to fall each month and are now well below the national average. We know a place to call home is the foundation of a good life, and that's why we've focused intensely on improving housing. We believe in homes that are built for families, for future and for life. Following the 2023 review of our housing strategy, we've aligned our housing work with our wider corporate plan and begun developing a new housing strategy for 2025 to 2030, informed by up-to-date needs assessments. Since 2022, we've delivered 1,423 affordable homes, which is a substantial increase on previous year's delivery rates and is helping more residents onto the housing ladder. Our affordable housing note, published in December 2024, gives more explicit guidance to developers. And through surplus council land, the schemes like the ones that we're working with Amplius and Longhurst, the Longhurst project, we're building homes where they're most needed. These homes aren't just numbers, they're opportunities for young families, key workers and older residents to stay rooted in the communities they love. And we've prioritised delivery where need is most significant and continue to work with partners to drive quality, not just quantity. We've also improved existing housing through our tenancy strategy, adopted in July 2023, which provides clear guidance for managing tenancies in our area. Our efforts to develop a private sector housing enforcement policy will give us the tools to hold landlords accountable where standards aren't met. Through strong partnership with registered providers and housing groups, we're unlocking existing regeneration opportunities across our district. But we've also stepped up the enforcement against poor standards in the private rented sector, engaging with landlords and taking firm action where it's needed. Our developing private sector housing enforcement policy will provide us with the additional tools to hold property owners accountable and protect tenants. Through partnerships with housing associations and Homes England, we're unlocking regeneration opportunities across the district. Our pipeline includes new supported housing for older people, regeneration of outdated stock, and homes prioritised for key workers and young families. Looking ahead, our refreshed housing strategy for 2025 to 2030, shaped by a needs assessment, will provide a clear roadmap to meet the district's housing needs with quality, sustainability and fairness. In terms of connectivity, since 2022, gigabit broadband coverage has increased from 53% to 88%, and 5G signal availability has risen from 23% to 92%, connecting our communities and supporting our businesses. While national infrastructure programmes often lead broadband rollout, we've played a key role in unlocking local delivery to make sure that Huntingdonshire isn't left behind. And we've advocated for improved rural bus connectivity and will continue to do so as bus franchising progresses. We've also looked to the future, investing in our economy and bringing growth to towns and communities. From across our district, from Ramsey to St Neots, St Ives to Huntingdon, regeneration is taking shape. We're planting the seeds of opportunities in public squares, high streets and business hubs. We're writing a new chapter for St Neots with the Priory Centre, bringing new life to the Old Falcon and welcoming visitors through the Discover Huntingdonshire campaign. We've completed most of the improvements to St Neots Market Square, transforming it into a vibrant and welcoming space for both residents and visitors. With its enhanced appearance and calendar of regular events and activities, it will continue to play a key role in the success of the town. And it positions St Neots well to be the beneficiary of economic growth that we anticipate will come from Universal Studios and the new town development that will be happening across the border in Bedfordshire. Since 2022, we've supported 218 businesses compared to the far fewer that we had previously managed to engage with under the previous model. And that's using the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Rural England Prosperity Fund, safeguarding 26 jobs and creating 30 new ones. Our economic development team and Invest in Huntingdonshire brand are putting Huntingdonshire on the map. We've secured £800,000 for high street revitalisation, improving shop fronts, boosting footfall and creating welcoming spaces. For our second consecutive year, we attended the UK Reef event in May, building on the success of the inaugural year with stronger engagement and increased visibility. We worked across party politics to promote Huntingdonshire's vision for economic growth. From unlocking new housing to driving high-value employment space, our district is full of opportunities for investors. And moving forward, our recently completed economic growth strategy will help shape a fairer, more ambitious local economy rooted in place and community. While parking can play a key role in town centre vitality, free parking isn't a panacea in many cases. It brings only short-term increases in footfall, while potentially contributing to congestion, space hoarding and lost council revenue. Our focus is on a balanced approach, improving access to town centres by all modes of transport, ensuring fair and consistent enforcement through the civil parking enforcement that is coming into play, and developing a data-led parking strategy. That's why the new parking strategy coming forward later this year will focus on ensuring parking supports lasting economic benefits by keeping prime spaces turning over, improving access for all, and designing policies that deliver genuine community benefit. We've backed our market towns, as I've already said, by an £800,000 investment programme, and it's far more than a one-size-fits-all parking discount could deliver. But we will continue to listen, adapt, and invest in what works for residents and businesses alike. This is about lasting impact, not quick headlines. Any serious council must act on the climate emergency, and in Huntingdonshire we are. We've jumped from an inherited 0% rating to over 40% in the latest independent external audit, leapfrogging from last place to above average in just 3 years. And we're proud to be the council that acts, not just plans, on a climate crisis. Our forthcoming energy strategy, a first for this council, will help the council reduce emissions and adopt cleaner energy sources. Already, solar panels at our leisure centres are producing up to a third of our energy, supporting both environmental and financial sustainability. Thanks to a £1.3 million biodiversity grant, we have rewilded and improved habitats at sites at Hillrise, Priory Park and Spring Common. We're also shaping the local nature recovery strategy and investing in flood defence schemes through the CPCA funding. The largest source of emissions still continues to be transport. Following a successful trial, we're transitioning our operations fleet from HVO, hydrotreated vegetable oil, and our fleet decarbonisation plan is next on our agenda. But most of what we do, 80% in fact, is our day-to-day. It's bins, licensing, clean streets, planning, but all of those things we do well, and that's what builds trust. Since 2022, over 2,200 food safety inspections have been conducted, surpassing the levels achieved under the previous administration, therefore safeguarding the health of our residents. The majority of Licensing Act licences have been processed within the required 7-day window, and our taxi licensing process has also undergone significant improvements, consistently exceeding its monthly targets every month since September 2022. When it comes to waste collection and street cleaning, I'm proud to say we're not just meeting expectations, but we are exceeding them. Our missed bin collection rate stands at just 0.051%, a clear improvement on prior performance compared to a national average of 0.075%. Now, that might sound like a slight difference, but in real terms, it reflects a consistently high standard of service. Since 2022, this council has collected around 18 million bins and only missed 9,207, which is a remarkable achievement by any measure. And that performance has not gone unnoted. According to APSE APPS, the leading benchmarking authority for operational services, we're recognised as one of the top performers in the country for both refuge collection and street cleansing in the last financial year. Our commitment to clean streets is equally clear. Since 2022, 98% of the areas we've tested are clean of litter, fly posting, weeds, detritus and graffiti. That's the result of a sustained effort, pride in our work, and a team that genuinely cares about the environment we all share. And I'm proud to say that our street cleansing team achieved its best performance in 3 years, passing an over 99% spot check rate. These achievements show what can be accomplished with commitment, efficiency, and a focus on continuous improvement. And it's something we should be proud of. Last year, we undertook the planning peer review as we're committed to making the necessary changes to improve service delivery, support growth, and plan for the future. And I'm pleased to say that in 2024-25, planning delivered its best performance in the last 3 years, following historic backlogs and slower service. Around 95% of household extension requests, 88% of major planning requests, and 90% of minor planning requests were completed on time. The backlog was also significantly reduced, down from 1,474 cases in 2023 to just 541. We've supported our staff through a new workforce strategy, focusing on wellbeing, recruitment and development, and our staff are our organisation. We don't exist as a council without them, and we wouldn't be able to deliver for our residents and businesses without them. So I want to thank each and every member of our staff teams for the work they do and how proud I know you feel to work alongside them. Through the LGA Corporate Peer Challenge, we're implementing best practice reforms to enhance transparency, performance and public trust. In just 3 years, we've not only stabilised the council, we've shifted the dial. National recognition, record performance and residents-focused investment all show that this is more than maintenance, it's momentum. And when we talk about outcomes, we're not just counting completions, we're counting the lives that we've improved. As we approach the budget for 2026-27, financial responsibility remains a top priority. We've stabilised the council's finances since 2022. And as more and more councils across the country face financial difficulty, I'm proud that we're delivering on our promise of a long-term economic stability for Huntingdonshire. While some decisions may not always be universally popular, they have been prudent in ensuring that we continue to be here for our residents and provide the services they need. We've set balanced budgets, a contrast to the reliance on reserves and financial uncertainty of some of the earlier years. We don't spend reserves, and importantly, we're protecting the frontline services. And all of this is at a time with decreasing government funding, rising costs, and greater pressure on all of our services. And importantly, we've achieved this by not cutting core services. We've protected what matters: waste collection, housing support, planning, and wellbeing programmes, while many councils around us are facing collapse. That's the result of taking early action, making firm choices, and practicing disciplined financial management in the changing economic environment. The Section 151 officer plays a critical role in protecting the council's long-term financial stability. And that means we need to be cautious about speculative financial strategies such as borrowing to invest or taking on interest rate risks. Prudence and transparency and resilience remain our guiding principles, and we've made choices rooted in those principles. Not popularity. I'm nearly finished. Not popularity, because leadership demands it. Every pound that we have targeted where it makes the most difference is protecting services now and future-proofing our council in a time of growing national uncertainty. It's not austerity, it's resilience in action, ensuring that the Huntingdonshire of tomorrow can meet those challenges head on. By building solid financial foundations, we've enhanced the council in line with the things that matter most to people. We can create a future centred on outcomes and the protection of services for our most vulnerable people, and so we can stop individuals and families falling into crisis. Now, there has been much debate on green bins, and I can't stand up here and not mention them, but the debate has been fair. That's appropriate and in a healthy democracy. But let me set the record straight. It isn't a reduction in service. It's a reform to protect services. I know we may disagree on that. The collection remains available to all residents with a fair and transparent charge for those who choose to use it. We were one of the last councils in this country to make that change. And by aligning it with what is already the national norm, we can protect essential services elsewhere, from housing supports to street cleaning, and without relying on reserves or making deeper cuts. Again, this is about fairness, sustainability, and financial responsibility. Now, all of this reflects the budget principles that we've followed consistently since 2022. We've set balanced budgets without depleting reserves, and we do so by involving all 52 councillors and listening to residents. Every investment is evidence-based, every risk is assessed, and every pound spent where it makes the most difference. We've paused risky borrowing, strengthened our commercial performance, and protected the services that matter most. That's why when other councils are facing a crisis, we continue to move forward, confident, stable, and focused on delivering for our communities. Because we've invested rather than cut, we've made efficiency gains that have improved our productivity and offered more, compounding the positive progress. While as a side effect, we've actually generated budget surpluses, more than we'd expected. We're also now better prepared for the long-delayed recalculations of the fairer funding. The government launched their consultation a few weeks ago, and regardless of how local government reorganisation works out, our residents are very unlikely to gain from the proposed funding changes. Our reserves are now ready to meet this challenge, rather than tipping us into crisis. Prudent and strategic forward thinking has benefits compared to short-term, politically driven headline-grabbing approaches. There have been claims that governance and risk has worsened under this administration. Again, let me be clear, the truth tells a different story, one of honest reflection and determined improvement. We've taken bold steps in opening ourselves up to external scrutiny, including a full planning peer review and the corporate peer challenge. We have acknowledged the areas that needed strengthening, some of which predated this administration, and we've taken decisive steps together to address them. This is the essence of accountable leadership, not just acknowledging the challenge, but then acting upon it. Audit findings are part of the evolving picture, and some reflect early transitional periods, not our current systems. Today, we have more transparent financial governance, stronger officer-member relationships, earlier decision-making, and more consistent risk oversight than ever before. Our monitoring officer and Section 151 officer are central to all key decisions, and that's by design. This isn't a council running from scrutiny, it's a council inviting it, learning from it, and acting upon it. From the beginning, we've sought to work across this chamber, recognising that political difference, when channelled constructively, can make our collective decisions stronger. In this administration, we've all shown that ideas matter more than ideologies, that cooperation isn't compromise, it's a commitment to better outcomes. I want to thank my colleagues from all political backgrounds who have challenged, contributed, and collaborated, as the people of Huntingdonshire are best served when we focus on what unites us rather than what divides us. We've also worked beyond our walls because real change demands genuine partnership, whether that's through the combined authority of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough or our changing role in the integrated care system. We've shown what leadership can mean. We've secured additional funding, influenced regional priorities, and ensured that the district needs of Huntingdonshire are being heard and acted upon. Our collaborations with NHS partners, county colleagues, and voluntary sector leaders are helping to break down silos and deliver joined-up support, whether it's in health, housing, or economic growth. When we work together, we go further, and we're committed to deepening those relationships to serve our communities. So as I come towards the end, in the months ahead, we're going to continue to take decisive steps to make a stronger future for all those that call Huntingdonshire home. We'll introduce the civil parking enforcement, and that will help create safer, better managed streets that support local pride, accessibility, and community safety alongside the new parking strategy. We will continue to develop our updated local plan, which will guide us on how our district grows in the next 20 years. A key milestone will be the consultation on the preferred options currently scheduled for autumn 2025. This process began early, significantly outpacing our neighbours and comparator districts and helping us be best in class. This is about shaping development, not reacting to it. By starting early and consulting widely, we have created a plan that reflects local priorities, protects our green spaces, and ensures infrastructure keeps pace with growth. We'll transform Hinchingbrook Country Park with the new Countryside Centre, cafe and car parking, with completion expected in spring of next year. Next spring, we'll launch food waste collections across the district. This will reduce landfill waste, help households reduce their waste, and build on the existing campaign to promote sustainable choices every day. Our community health and wealth building strategy, supported by £750,000 of delivery funding, will come to life this year with the launch of the first of a series of community-developed grant schemes. Shaped by conversations with residents about what a good life means in Huntingdonshire, the strategy will be built on three key pillars: financial security, good health, and strong social connections. These aren't just ideals, these are the foundations of well-being. And the strategy will outline how we will work in partnership with communities and local organisations to make them a reality. While the Council has approved the initial funding, the Delivery Fund is designed to grow through contributions from partners, expanding its capacity to benefit residents across the district. This people-first approach ensures our resources are focused where they matter most, because meaningful work, strong relationships and advice mean healthy lives, and they're not just policy ambitions, they're what makes communities flourish. And now we have a local government that requires us to do local government, we have a government that requires us to do local government reorganisation. And this has to be in place from the 1st of April 2028. What matters is that we collectively advocate for a new unitary structure that works in practice, delivers for residents, and ensures sustainable local services. We won't gamble with our future by rushing into premature conclusions. We'll be data-driven and will await the outcomes of the business case to enable us to make sound decisions. We're keen to ensure that we hear residents' voices about what matters to them in terms of a new authority. The government hasn't offered a referendum. Therefore, we'll demonstrate authentic leadership by weighing the evidence, understanding all perspectives, delivering what works, and not being tempted to make changes for party political gains. We'll engage widely, we will listen carefully, and we'll be realistic about the complexity of our geography. Huntingdonshire has both north and south-facing communities, and preferences may diverge between alignment with Cambridge and Peterborough. That's why we might not be able to present a single preferred option as a council, and that's okay if the business cases can demonstrate financially sustainable unitary authorities for each of the options. It will be incumbent on the council to make the most of whichever option the government chooses and to ensure delivery for residents remains at the forefront. It's not just about what works best for Huntingdonshire, it's about future sustainability and effective local government for the whole of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And we've worked hard over the last 3 years to do our best for Huntingdonshire. That effort won't stop until we transfer to a new unitary authority, as this will ensure our residents are in the best place possible after these changes. And we're encouraging the other councils to do the same. So 3 years on, I'm proud of what we have all achieved together, our staff and our 52 councillors. I would like to extend my thanks to everyone. I promised that we would work together for the good of our residents, and we have, and we will. I can't help but be excited about what's ahead, given the rapid transformation of the last. Potential for the future is enormous. And local government reorganisation isn't a threat. However, it's not what we would have chosen, and at this pace, but it does present an opportunity to do more at scale, to work more effectively across all services and benefit our residents. And so as I come to a close, I make no apology for the length of this speech. Well, I do apologise, really. You've been really patient with me. I could have been up here all night because there is so much that this council, that you as 52 councillors have achieved over the last 3 years, and you should be proud of those achievements. The achievements I've outlined are not just better service delivery, it's service delivery with real focus and purpose, putting residents front and centre, not just policy improvement, but pride in the difference we make every day across all of our services. Not just stability of the council when others are going under, but upward, forward and transformative momentum that ensures we're here for all of our residents. And that's an organisation that people want to be part of. one that values its staff and enables them to achieve great things for our communities with us. We inherited a district full of potential. Together, we're unlocking it, one community, one place, and one proud town at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conboy. Do you think a round of applause is for that? An excellent presentation. Thank you. So can I now hand over to Councillor Martin, Leader of Opposition, to respond to that address?
Thank you very much, Chair. Unfortunately, I was unaware that Councillor Conboy was going to talk for so long, so I did write a speech only that was 5 minutes in length, but I'm sure I can try and stretch it out a bit longer if I need to, because everyone wants to listen to my voice now. They've heard Councillor Conboy for 20 minutes or so. First off, Chair, I would like to thank Councillor Conboy for her address. As much as I disagree with some of the things that she said in it, I do appreciate that she's at the helm of the organisation and doing the best that she can and doing what she thinks is right for the organisation, completely accepting the point that I raised last year in my first year as Leader of the Opposition, that we will work together 100%. I think we've shown that over the last 12 months. We'll continue to do so, but if we disagree, we will absolutely tell you that we disagree with you. And before I go on to some more substantial remarks, Chair, I'd just like to put on the record my group and my thanks to all of our officers, employees and staff that work day in, day out for our council. A lot of it goes unrecognised by our residents and equally goes unrecognised by us in this chamber, because it is the business as usual that the council does on a day-to-day basis, and we simply don't see it all the time. So I think it's important that all of us in this chamber now just say a big thank you to our staff and all of the team that help us do what we do. I do strongly believe it's important that we recognise when good work has taken place, and I do have a couple of teams to give a bit of a shout out to that I think over the last 12 months in particular has done some incredible work. The first one is the Economic Development team. We saw coming through to the last round of ONS the strategic the growth plan, the economic development strategy, and the work that Rebecca and her team are doing is fantastic, quite frankly. The vision that team has and the way that this district is now shown as an area for investment is incredible. And moving forward, going into LGR, it's important that we can show that we are an area of growth, that we are an area of opportunity, and we're an area that is open for business. We need to be a national leader in defence technology. We need to be a magnet for startups priced out by Cambridge. And we need to be a base for businesses that want to capitalise on our strong transport infrastructure. And I think the Rebecca's team is absolutely doing that. I do think that sometimes they're stretching themselves a bit too thin, but I think the work that they're doing is fantastic. And getting to UK Reef, I know there's other events coming down the pipeline. It's incredible, and you have our full support in driving that agenda. The next team is Rob in the emergency planning team. I know this time, November last year, Councillor Conboy and I were on the telephone every day, if not twice a day, talking about the floods that were going on across Huntingdonshire. And as much as Huntingdonshire District Council showed leadership in comparison to other agencies, there was still a lot lacking. There was still a lot of work that needed to be done. And over the last several months, Rob and his team have been doing incredible work. It is now not just a function of senior management, it is a function throughout the council. And I think it's worth recognising that. I spoke to Rob, was it last week, at the water management seminar that we had at St Burgess Hall, and hearing what he and his team are doing across the organisation is really important, and we need to recognise it. And then the other one, as Councillor Conboy mentioned, was One Leisure. What a change we've seen in One Leisure, and that is down to Greg, quite frankly. The work that he has done to turn One Leisure around is incredible. He's coming with a completely different mindset. He's coming with a mindset of business and not of local councils, and has turned it around. So we need to recognise officers like Greg that are doing fantastic work. And being parochial, and I'm never accused of being parochial, the reopening Sawtry swimming pool is an incredible thing for the district. We are bucking the national trend where swimming pools are shutting on a weekly basis. We in Huntingdonshire will be reopening a swimming pool in the north of our district, which is much needed. And again, down to Greg and to Lee and the rest of the One Leisure team, so a big thank you to them. But it would be wrong of me as the leader of the opposition if I then didn't move on to some of the things that we think aren't going so well and some of the concerns that we are seeing. While we celebrate the successes where it exists, we also need to be clear-eyed about where things are going wrong and where the Joint Administration is not delivering for residents. Now, Councillor Conboy, near the start of her speech, she mentioned that the Joint Administration were working off measurable achievements. So you can prove that you're doing better, that you're moving forwards. Well, if you have a look at your performance indicators, 18 out of 32 of them show that you are worse off today than you were 2 years ago. So the measurable achievements aren't there. You say it's not true, Councillor Conboy. Have a look at the reports. The reports say something different. So what's coming through to us says something completely different. We mentioned the best value notice. But what we've seen today is a couple of strategies being announced this council that aren't on the forward plan. They haven't been brought forward to the council before this time. I thought that any strategy that was coming to this council should have to go onto the forward plan in some way or another. That's a governance issue. We've had the energy strategy and we've had the parking strategy, again for the fourth month in a row or fourth meeting in a row being mentioned. It still isn't on the forward plan. I've checked it this evening. It's still not there. Where is it? That is fundamentally an issue with governance, which is what the best value disclaimer was put up against. And through you, Chair, I'd just like to say to Councillor Taylor, I'm sorry if you were listening to Councillor Conboy there, you're not going to be getting your free parking in St Neots. So I'm really sorry to tell you that. I'm sure you'll be having very stern conversations with Councillor Conboy over the next few weeks. Wow. So with all of this, what we've seen from the Joint Administration over the last 3 years is the hoarding of residents' money. We have seen, since the Joint Administration took over, £9 million go into our general revenue earmarked reserves. That is a huge amount of money. And where has it all come from? It's come from underperformance, cutting services, and ever increasing cost to our residents. We are not arguing against financial prudence, far from it. But in the face of this underperformance, in the face of the largest cuts in council services, which Councillor Conboy and I will vehemently disagree with, and we always will do, and residents are hugely concerned that the Joint Administration are charging them more and more and getting less and less. You have to ask yourself, why is that money not being used to deliver results today, now? And just before I move on to the next section, Chair, I just wanted to talk about LGR as well. Councillor Conboy mentioned that we're going to be data-driven in our approach. I wonder what data we use to come up with the 3 options that are on the table, because the members across this chamber know what they are. Wasn't very much data, was it? Our residents don't know what data we're using. Nobody shared the data that we're using. So saying we're data-driven, I think, is a farce.
Yeah.
Now, we could spend forever, Chair. I could filibuster this meeting and talk for hours on end about things that I think are going wrong within this council. But I think we all too often talk about what's going on in this council and not what's going on outside in our district. And what I wanted to do was to talk about some of our residents, some of our volunteers and some of our community groups that are doing some incredible work across the area. Because they are the lifeblood of our district. They're the people that keep us moving forwards. So just a couple to raise, Chair. Charles Dallywater from Alconbury. Most of us know him as the Alconbury Brook Flood Group champion. He is an incredible force for our area. He understands the area inside and out, and we should thank him massively for the incredible work that he has done and is continuing to do. Now, I know Alconbury Parish Council over the weekend awarded him honorary freeman of their village, and as a farmer of sheep, he's now allowed to herd his sheep over the Alconbury Bridge, which I really look forward to seeing summer next year, we'll make sure there's no parking enforcement officers around at the time. Thank you. So that's Charles. Next, we've got Paul Swinney at Bid Huntingdon and Mags as well. They're doing incredible work in our town centre in Huntingdon and revitalising, bringing events to the area, bringing in investments. They are doing some fantastic work and they need to be recognised. I know they were recognised earlier this year with the Prime Minister coming out. I don't know whether that was a gift or not, to be honest. Depends who you're talking to. But they are doing fantastic work and we do need to recognise them. We do need to support them. We need to give them our full backing 100%. And shall I just rattle through a few more? There's a Stop East Park Energy group, the Piddly Lorry group, Laura from the St Ives Baby Loss group, Jan Burgess from Upward and the Raveleys, who's challenging the 7.5 tonne limits there. Russ and David Gadsby from Spirotech, who are supporting care leavers finding their first jobs. The Ramsey branch of the Little Miracles, Kim Bolton's Welcome Club, Damien Wales and the Malcolm Wales Foundation, Priory Park Friends Group, and the Yaxley Community Fridge. That is not an exhaustive list. There are far more than that. And I think we should all in this chamber recognise the incredible work that some of our residents are doing and some of the community groups are doing. But yes, a big round of applause for all of those groups. And Chair, in closing, our residents will always deserve better. It doesn't matter who's in charge, they'll always deserve better, they'll always want better. And it's us in the opposition that will continue to ask the tough questions, propose better solutions when they're available, and stand up for the communities who all too often feel that they are being left behind. There are too many villages that I go around now that feel left behind compared to our market towns. We will stand up for them. We will support them. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Martin, for those very kind words. That's really lovely to hear. Okay, so next on the list is Councillor Alban.
Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Dew's not here, I'd ask you to pass on my thanks to him. Stilton Cheese Rolling Festival came back into being a couple of years ago, driven by local community activists, and it was great to see Councillor Dew there acting as honorary umpire. Grateful for Councillor Keane and Councillor Lowe for joining us, and I'd send an invitation to you and all councillors. Stilton Cheese Rolling next year. If we can get a councillors team from the district, that'd be great in support of all the crazy things that go on, whether it's duck racing in Godmanchester or where I used to live, or a cheese rolling up the north of the district. There's so much going on in Huntingdonshire and so much to be proud of. I would like to touch on a point that Councillor Conboy started with about the joint administration coming into being and being made up of councillors from different parties. And I would like to put on record that, of course, there are more Conservative councillors elected by the residents and the voters of Huntingdonshire than any other party. More residents in Huntingdonshire voted Conservative than any other party or any other independent. But in 2022, that was the reality. A joint administration was formed. We are where we are, not where we on this side of the chamber would like to be. And I like to feel in Huntingdonshire, certainly looking back to my time in the county council back in the 80s, that we treat each other with respect. We don't really jibe at each other that much, even where we disagree. There's not the nastiness that I've seen in other political parties, particularly in the committee and working groups and overview and scrutiny panels. And I think that's something that Huntingdonshire can be proud of. Nevertheless, we will be putting a full slate of candidates up in next year's elections should they take place, and we'll invite all the residents to consider what we have to offer for them, and we'll take what the residents have to say. I would like to pick up a point about the executive leader making about infrastructure keeping pace with development. And one of my big concerns is the A605 corridor. It's been pressured at both ends, being pressured from Thrapston in Northamptonshire with the developments there, the warehouse developments there, that link between the A14 and the A1, being pressured from the ever westward creep of Peterborough, the development of the showground, and now we're being pressured for development around Chesterton, and the call for sites being coming forward with sites at the north of the districts. And I would like to make all councillors as aware that as we grow, there are limits to what the infrastructure that exists can cope with. And the A605 in the north of the districts is one of those things. For the bulk of it, it was single carriageway. There's no dual carriageway. And I'm concerned about the possibility of the increase. We don't expect, Councillor Butel and I represent those areas and others nearby, we don't expect life to stand still. We don't expect a rural little to change, not at all. We realise change has got to come, but it's got to be sustainable, and we've got to have proposed development scrutinised properly. And we really need to make sure that that infrastructure is in place. I would like to pick up as well about some of the things that the joint administration has built on that they've inherited from us. HVO was mentioned, and Councillor Lowe is someone that's pushed that right from the word go when it wasn't popular, and now it is. CPA, Councillor Butel pushed that, Councillor Taylor took it on, and I'm grateful for the work that those two councillors put into it, and it's now coming to fruition, and I know Councillor Kerr will be looking to take that forward. I won't pick up on that because that may come up later. Hinchinbrook Country Park, again, something that was brought under under the previous administration. We pushed it forward. It drew all party support and continues to do so. And as someone that's at Hinchinbrook Country Park most weeks, I think that's another asset we can be proud of. The green flag that was re-awarded is great news, and I look forward to the development of that. Chair, or Vice Chair, I've taken up enough of the time. We will be watching on this side of the chamber. We will be watching in the rural areas that we get our fair share. We don't expect more than our fair share of attention and investment, but we do expect our fair share.
Thank you, Councillor Orban, for your responses. I was disappointed that the Stilton cheese rolling wasn't downhill. It was on a flat. So hopefully they'll change that.
It's a lot safer, Chair, than what they do down
Yes,
down the
sorry here. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you very much, Chair. In fact, I've been in politics so long I can remember Councillor Orban on Cambridgeshire County Council in the 1980s. And he actually taught me a lot, so he has a great deal to answer for, I'm sure he'll admit. But no, but seriously, he's been Councillor Orban's been a great servant over many years, and I know he does a very good job of representing his residents. And I'll certainly be willing to work with him on the issues he raised about call for sites and development. Chair, I'm not sure if you remember that Monty Python film, Life of Brian, that sketch, where except for this and except for that, what have the Romans ever done for us? And listening to Councillor Martin, except for One Leisure now making a profit, except for Sawtry Swimming Pool, except for CPE, economic growth strategy, emergency planning, planning services turned around completely. What have the joint administration ever done for us? He actually seemed quite pleased with the progress we'd made. And he criticised us for putting £9 million, which he claims, into reserves, and said that was a result of underperformance. I found that a little bewildering. I'm disappointed there'll be no free parking in St Neots because, of course, every day we get the Mayor, Paul Bristow, Combined Authority Mayor, walking the streets of St Neots telling us that he's going to bring free parking there and also to Peterborough. So we look very much forward to the funding. But I actually do want to pick up on a more serious point, and I think Councillor Martin was correct, absolutely, to pay tribute to all our volunteers, but actually, and I think he's too modest to say so, he works for a very proactive Member of Parliament for Huntingdon, and that's been extremely refreshing. I'm sure we'll all agree. We also have a very proactive Member of Parliament in St Neots and Ian Solomon, and I think the two of them have actually worked well together, and it's certainly helped me, and I'm sure it's helped others in getting things done. So I think Councillor Comboy's very thorough speech summed up the progress that we've made. Absolutely right that the colleagues across the aisle hold us to account. If we do have elections next year, of course, it'll be up to the Great British electorate or Huntingdonshire electorate to make that decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Certainly feeling the love in the room. Okay, so finally, Councillor Gray, because we'll need to move on with nearly 50 minutes on this one, possibly one more. Go on, Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't let the debate go by without just correcting one or two little factual inaccuracies that seem to have crept into the narrative. And I did appreciate the very detailed response that the leader gave us. Always appreciate her contribution, and obviously I think we're all, as Councillor Martin has said, very grateful to those of us who have served on cabinet in the past, and I have had the dubious pleasure of watching several leaders occupy her seat previously, know that it's quite a demanding job, and I think we should pay tribute to her for fulfilling that with a great deal of skill and elegance and cross-party collaboration. And I want to thank you, Leader, for that. Nevertheless, can I just say, we never relied on reserves, so that's not true. Never once did our external auditors say that we were undertaking risky borrowing. You will not find that in any external auditor's report. And I did have to smile when you talked about disciplined financial management, because of course you did sort of obliquely reference the fact that we have disclaimed accounts on value for money. Now, there's no point shaking your head about it. We have got disclaimed accounts for value for money this year for the first time ever as an authority in 50 years. So I totally accept, and this is a compliment, I think, to the monitoring officer, sorry, not the monitoring officer, the Section 151 officer, that an awful lot of work has been undertaken in the last few months to turn that situation around. But let's not be we can't duck the fact that our external auditors have come in and said we don't have confidence that you were spending public money wisely during 2023-2024. And I think that's just, I'm afraid, a fact on the record. My final point, she had, again kindly touched on it. I wondered whether we're going to get through the whole of the 5-year plan track to production speech without talking about green bins, but we did get there in the end. And of course, you know, it is, whether you like it or not, the biggest reduction in services that's ever been delivered to the people of Huntingdonshire. Many people who had a service now don't have that service unless they wish to pay for it, and they've made the decision that they don't wish to pay for it. There's still not been really proper scrutiny about this. I was clearly very disappointed that the Saturday freighters disappeared, because that was one of the promises. I represent areas that are further from a community waste tip than any others in this district. The nearest waste tip for most of my residents is Rushton, which is in Northamptonshire. And if you turn up there, they'll send you away because you don't live in Northamptonshire. But I think the scrutiny panel did a good job, and the officers did a good job of recognising that possibly the freighters were not the best way of delivering that. But I still think there's more work to do around trying to find ways that these community bins, these 10 community bins in villages, could be rolled out. So I would encourage the new portfolio holder to thoroughly embrace that in her tenure in front of us. I think I'd close by saying it was a little telling, Leader, that you closed your speech by talking about improving the district town by town. No, town by town. Town by town. And actually, of course, the vast majority of the parishes that are out there are in villages. So I would say that quite a lot of things that have happened in the last 12 months haven't really been in the favour of the people that I represent in rural areas, whether it's for this authority, whether it's higher authorities elsewhere. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McAdam, and then we'll wrap up with Councillor Gomboy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say, first of all, looking back over my time as Vice Chair and Chair, one of the frustrations was never having the opportunity to stand up and speak at a meeting like this. So now I've got the opportunity, I'm taking it. But I'm not going to take a lot of time over it. I would just like to thank our leader, Councillor Convoy, for extraordinary dedication to the job, her care in all she does, and I accept the fact, along with everybody else, that nobody's perfect, and therefore it doesn't matter who's in the job and how well they do it, you're always going to find some form of criticism. But the important thing is that we find a way to collaborate and work together so that we can, as a council, we can come out with positive results for our residents.
So on that note, I'd just like to say how impressed I was over the last 3 years listening to Councillor Gray and also Councillor Martin with their view that we work collaboratively where we can and that we're critical where we need to be, but we find solutions together to make things better as a whole council. And I think that's a very constructive way of doing business in the council. I must admit, before I was elected onto the council, I was a little bit dubious about what it was actually going to be like. I thought the atmosphere might be a bit more hostile with the, with the system of having an opposition and also an administration. But I've been pleasantly surprised that we do work well together and that we do understand each other and we are polite to one another. Finally, I'd just like to say one thing about our attitude to our residents. I do feel that at heart, irrespective of any failings we may have had, we are a kind, caring council. And what makes me say this? Well, one of the things is the arguments we have and the disagreements, and maybe still do have, regarding the green bin charge. Now, I understand, and I think all of us in here, irrespective of our criticisms of it, understand why it was put into place. But what else did we do at the same time? We brought in the council tax relief so that the poorest and most the most at-risk people in our community could still afford to pay if they need be, because the amount they weren't paying off the council tax more than compensated for the green bin charge. So I think we as a council overall can be proud of what we've done over the last 3 years. And my hope is that, I'm pretty much certain actually, that over the next remainder of this administration, we're going to continue in that vein. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wake, have you got something very, very short?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
I did.
I can
Caught my eye.
All colleagues want to hear from my group more than this microphone seems to, but well, we'll see how it goes. I can see, Chair, that you're looking to close debate, so I'll resist the temptation to repeat anything that Councillor Conboy has listed, even the progress about affordable homes in our district as well. But I'd certainly want to put on record my thanks to her and Cabinet and administration colleagues and colleagues across the chamber for the work behind what she's done to set out that we have done. She did a lot of it single-handedly, but not all of it. Now, I've risen to speak because Councillor Gray did manage to slip in late in the budget debate and made some comments that I would have loved an opportunity to come back on, but the list had closed at that point, and I think he had the last word there. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to have a go at just commenting on just a little bit of what he outlined as well. Councillor made a comment about the financial position of the council when we inherited it, and Councillor Gray was at pains to point out that they didn't rely upon reserves. The financial position that we inherited, of course, had the plates kept spinning for a significant period of time. I'd commend Councillor Gray for having managed to do that. But the previous administration, we know, had discussed the charging for collection of green bins. We know that because they've admitted it in a press release. We know that they held off doing it, declined to do it prior to the election. But we know that the financial plan that we inherited contained the assumption of substantial lowering of reserves in order to keep the ship afloat. substantial service cuts or a mixture of both. We felt we had no choice but to make the choice we did, as Councillor Conboy outlined. We have previously put to members across the chamber that they might have made the same choice in our shoes had they won the election as they expected and as we did as well. And we know that they declined to make alternative suggestions. Members on the other side very disappointed at my microphone dying there, I'm sure. And we know that they declined to propose alternative ways of balancing the books in that first year as well. That's all on the record. As we've stabilised the finances, they felt more comfortable to make criticism of us since.
I'd like to hand over to Councillor Conboy.
Content with the finances that we've left, Chair. So thank you for your time.
Okay. Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, I don't think the executive leader or the deputy assistant executive leader wanted to really mislead residents listening in. But I think it's quite disingenuous to say that the current administration is not depleting reserves when the budget and the MTFS that was passed by her joint administration earlier this year wiped out the whole of the budget surplus reserve by 2029 and used part of the CIS reserve to balance the books at the end. Now, it's not a position that we on this side have any intrinsic objection to, but it is a bit rich that a very similar situation with the budget and MTFS that the joint administration inherited, many of her colleagues went round repeating the mantra and the soundbite that they'd inherited this big black hole, black hole, black hole, black hole. That's all they talked about. And now we've got a situation where you've created your own black hole by the same terminology, despite having taken more money out of our residents' pockets than ever before. So I'd just like to put that on the record, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jennings. Okay, finally, a summary from Councillor Conboy.
Thank you, Chair. I should be very brief because otherwise we really will be here all night. I think, to quote somebody rather well known, I think we may disagree on our recollections, and we will provide you with the papers because they are all in the papers. But I would like to thank colleagues, as I say, across this chamber. You know, the spirit in which we disagree with each other is always polite. You know, it is emotional. I get that, but it is always polite and respectful, and so it should be. We know we will disagree. We will seek to provide the evidence that I hope will allow the clarity that people perhaps don't necessarily feel they have, but we believe we do have. But I would just like to thank everybody, and thank you very much, Chair and colleagues, for your indulgence this evening. We've taken a very long time on this item. It's really important. This is the last date of the district for this current administration, as in this council. There will be elections in May. There will be a new administration, even if it's all the same ones of us who come back again, it will be a new administration. So thank you for your indulgence this evening. I hope it will be something that our staff will be really proud of, and that we'll be able to tell the story of the hard work of 52 members of this council. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for their contributions. Okay, so we move on to item 8, which is questions to members of Cabinet. So we're moving into this, so where councillors may ask questions to members of the Cabinet. Before we start this, can I remind you that the questions must be relevant to matters for which the council has powers or duties, must not be related to an item which is included elsewhere on the council agenda, since they can be raised at that point in that meeting. Should be limited to obtaining information or pressing for action, and must not divulge or require to be divulged confidential or exempt information. Finally, must not exceed 2 minutes in duration. Okay, so I'd like to also remind you that if you'd like to take the opportunity to ask a supplementary question, can we please ensure that they're raised through the chair and not directly through the chief as the executive councillor? Could members also please keep their questions and answers brief or succinct to allow full participation for all members? Thank you. I saw Councillor Simon Taylor's hand up first.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question to the portfolio holder for Countryside and Parks. Thank you, Chair, if I may. As we know, our open spaces in Huntingdonshire are well used and vital areas for our residents for physical and mental health support. We started rebuilding the paths in St Neots Riverside Park, the Regatta Meadow side, which are now wide, smooth, and can be shared with pedestrian, cyclists and disability scooters, wheelchairs, etc. Planning permission has been approved for the rest of the path. However, we have not been able to proceed as the funds were not enough to complete the project. These paths, the existing paths that are left, are in poor state and are very hard to use day to day. There is very limited disability access. We need funds to complete the project. Could please the portfolio holder for Countryside and Parks give me an update on the A428 funding for the St Neots Riverside Park paths? Do we know if this has been submitted yet? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. You want to come back on that?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yes, phase one has been finished, but there hasn't been any funding yet applied for phase two. But as Councillor Taylor said, there has been planning consent given. The team at the moment are prioritising working on the Hinchinbrook Country Park development and applying for planning permission. Once that is underway and is moving into the delivery phase, they will return to the St Neots Riverside Park project and submit for an application for the A428 Social Value Fund to finish the remaining footpaths.
Okay, thank you. You want to come back on that?
Yes, please. I would like to say and put this on record, I am disappointed as this should have been managed in conjunction with Hinchinbrook Country Park. I would like to take this offline. I don't know what the deadline is on the submission to the A4 for the A428 submission. I will be very disappointed if we have missed that deadline. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll leave you to follow up outside of the meeting on that. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. My question is to Councillor Kerr again, and a second question about a Riverside Park. So myself and Councillor Harvey's ward covers the majority of Huntingdon's brilliant Riverside Park. We've been approached by a number of residents who live near the park that would like to set up a group similar to the existing Friends of Hinchinbrook Park. Is it possible to do this? Would they get the support of HDC officers and the Executive Councillor if they were to do so?
Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, for you, Chair. Yes, the officers would be welcome helping set up something similar. If Councillor Hunt would like to contact me, and we will set up a meeting with the officers and some of the residents, and we'll get that started in the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you. You want to come back on that?
Yep, just quickly to ask if willing to meet with myself and Councillor Harvey in the coming days.
Councillor Alban.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The question is to Councillor Ferguson in his role covering licensing and community enforcement. As he knows, we've got some very dedicated enforcement officers who tackle fly tipping, and the particular issue that I want to raise tonight, it's fly posting. We seem to have got on top of it, but it seems to be, I don't know whether it's just my ward, I see it around Huntingdon as well, the growth of fly posting, not just on our property, but on verges and on county council property. One of the areas that I think we might make progress is with circuses and fairgrounds. I'm not lumping them all because I don't think they're all guilty of this. But often in the run-up to a circus or a fair appearing in an area, posters will be put up and then they'll be left. The fact that they're put up and fly posted is bad enough, that then they're left to rot and deteriorate, and the sellotape just goes all manky and it leaves a mess. So what scope, and this is my question, I will take it, I'll take a written answer if it's not something Councillor Ferguson can answer straight away. What scope is there to take a deposit from a fairground or an organiser that puts up posters and then doesn't take them down as part of their application to have a fair or a circus in the district?
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you. Well, I agree it's an excellent suggestion, and whatever we can do to remove that detritus from walls and windows would be very welcome indeed. I don't know the answer to the question on deposits, but I will consult with the team. I will say that the community safety team, as you know, if you do an excellent job in tackling all sorts of antisocial behaviour, including fly tipping, including dog mess, including removal notices on cars and kind of the antisocial behaviour issues which have been treated in Ramsey and St Neots as well. So they're a very small team, they're very busy. But if we can add this to their list of tasks, I think it would be worthwhile, and I agree with you completely. It would be a good for the district to eliminate that kind of fly posting. So I will ask the question and we'll write back to you and everybody else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patrick Cadwell.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask a question to the portfolio holder of the planning and growth, Councillor Tom Sanderson. Can you please highlight sorry about that. Hold on. Can you please highlight the latest performance statistics for the planning service to members?
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Kedaware for that question. Pleased to say we continue to make great progress. Team performing very highly continually. On enforcement, figures on hand held by our team are actually now roughly half of what they were in January 2024. So great tribute to our planning enforcement team. And across the board in the service, our major applications, they're around 93%. That's way above target. Minors are around 88%. Minors in month planning applications are around 95%. We have a backlog of around 27 cases. That's for the month of June. So I'm extremely pleased with the performance of the planning services team. Obviously, we can improve those targets, but I think we're doing extremely well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Butel.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Councillor Kerr. However, before I ask my question, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our officers in obtaining the authorisation for CPE. Having brought this paper personally to Council as Cabinet Member for Operations under the previous Conservative administration, the wait has been long, but it has now been signed off by the DFT, and for that we are grateful. My question is, given the rollout will take place in the larger towns, what support are the villages going to have with parking issues? Will there be a dedicated telephone number to report parking issues or a dedicated email address to enable reporting of parking violations?
Councillor Kerr.
Thank you through you, Chair. It will be every area of the district will be covered for the civil parking. It isn't just for towns, it's for all areas. Initially, they will be set areas so we can measure the success and the results, but then after that, various parishes, clerks and residents can come forward with the areas that they're of particular concern. But for the first 6 months, we're sticking to the same areas that we're covering for data and clarity.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Butel, you want to come back on that?
Yes, I'd like to ask what she means by success. And it's, you know, if it is going to be in the larger towns that it's rolled out and you're excluding the villages, how long will it take us to get round to supporting the villages with parking?
Councillor Kerr.
It is going to villages as well, but it will be set areas. Then after that, there'll be more flexibility once we've understood. You can't gather data if you're being pulled from pillar to post and doing different areas. So we'll work in the same areas and see if there's a reduction in illegal parking. And then after the 6 months, we'll be able to work more flexibly with the parishes and the towns, but everyone will have civil parking enforcement.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the Executive Leader. Earlier this afternoon, we've seen a release on social media by the MP for North West Cambridgeshire and the MP for Peterborough, with the support of Peterborough City Council, suggesting a new option for local government reorganisation, which is completely different from the 3 options that were released in a joint statement by all 7 councils only last month. Does this not make a mockery of the whole system? How can councillors in this chamber be comfortable that what we're doing is the right thing? And how can our residents feel that this is the right thing when we've got competing priorities?
Councillor Comboy.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I think this is something that will resonate with you. The government's process does not naturally build in consultation for local government reform. And MPs certainly have been very vocal about their views and their thoughts. Certainly the two MPs that you've referred to that cover the Peterborough area have been very vocal in public about their desire to see a greater Peterborough, but without really explaining how they think that that would be deliverable and actually demonstrate sustainable alternative councils. So my understanding is that as of today, there is a note in the Peterborough Council papers that says it is being considered on their request. What I'm not clear of is what Peterborough will then do in terms of whether it will then work up a fourth business case. Certainly, if it works up a fourth business case, potentially that could go to government alongside the other three business cases. But the reason that we haven't got that on the table is because the initial data, limited as it is for initial data, demonstrated that actually a Greater Peterborough was not financially sustainable in terms of creating alternative sustainable unitaries. So whilst arguably it might work or might not work for Peterborough, it may not work for the other combinations of unitaries across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. So I'm watching with interest to see what Peterborough decide. Certainly that has not been something discussed at any length with leaders, and we will need to wait and see what they do.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate the response, and that Councillor Conboy was unaware of this fourth option that's now on the table, but it does open up the question, if other outside bodies are able to put forward proposals, why are we on this side of the chamber not able to put forward our own proposals that this council then decides whether to take forwards? If they're able to, why are we not?
Councillor
Chair,
Conboy.
through you. So it isn't that you can't, and certainly the proposal that has come forward, in theory, based on what I have seen in the press and what you've probably seen in the press, does not comply with the government's directions and its desire to see us build on existing council boundaries. Certainly, if you wish to put forward another proposal, you are perfectly at liberty to do so. However, we have a general resources issue that to actually create 3 business cases that use the same data, which is a government requirement, across the whole of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, so that we can put in 3 business cases to government that can be considered equally. The government will clearly have a view about which business case its preference is, but those 3 business cases, in theory at this point, will give us 3 financially sustainable models for a new unitary. We may not like all of those models, but if they actually deliver financially sustainable unitaries, then government potentially will consider them. If they don't, based on what's happened in Surrey, government will say, thank you very much, but it's not a sustainable option, or it doesn't meet our criteria, and will take it off the table and won't consider it moving forward. The real challenge is we are up against time. What we have on the table is 3 deliverable models that we think will deliver 2 sustainable unitary authorities. If Peterborough works up a 4th option, it will also need to demonstrate it's financially sustainable, and the initial data suggests that it is not just for Peterborough, but more importantly, for the unitaries it will then create. Their model that I've seen today looks like a 3 unitary model, and certainly the data doesn't suggest that a 3 unitary model is financially sustainable for the new future unitaries. So it isn't just about what's good for one place, it has to be something that works for the whole of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. I will wait to see what they actually produce and where this goes. I'm also waiting to see what Peterborough Council decides to do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. I just question for Councillor Kerr. I did give her some advance notice so that hopefully she's been able to at least dig around a bit. And I'd like to know who is responsible for collecting litter on the A14. Particularly, I'm interested in this stretch between Keyston and Brampton Hut.
Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yes, I spoke with officers today. We are responsible, HDC are responsible for all litter. I actually asked for some information on how frequently they collect litter, And at Brampton Hut roundabout, they do it they do the circuit every 2 to 3 months. And each time they go to Brampton Hut, just on that roundabout, they collect 150 bags of litter. That's how prolific it is. It's an ongoing issue. And that roundabout to the next one, which is about 1/4 mile, they also collect 150 bags each time they go collecting. So it's an ongoing problem. They're aware of it.
Quite alarming. Councillor Gray.
Right. Okay. I did think that that was the answer. In which case, it's great that they're collecting it from the roundabout, and it's great collecting up to the next roundabout. But of course, most of my residents don't live on the roundabout. I counted on my way in this morning 15 remains of lorry tyres on the eastbound carriageway alone. We've got various sort of animals that have met an untimely end that are in various states of mummification, and there's just litter everywhere. Now, this is the time of year to do it. It's long summer evenings. That road has been closed on numerous occasions over the past few months, which would have provided a great opportunity. And this point has been raised before. I realise that she's new in post, and I would really appreciate it if she could work with her officers to try and find a way that we can coordinate with National Highways, because I realise that we don't want to be sending them out there sort of, in the middle of the rush hour with some high-vis jackets. But there are frequent closures on that road, and we should be using those closures, even if it requires us investing some extra money in order to do that. Can I just also, in closing, put in a little plea for the Mill Common car park that a number of us use? Absolutely full of rubbish this evening. Now, this is our car park, full of rubbish and weeds and dust. People pay to park in there. I think we can do better than that. So if I can leave that one with her, because we're certainly responsible for that, and that's in the town. So that would be great. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Councillor Kerr, you want to go back on that?
I'll get back onto the officers for that. The issue of trying to coordinate with National Highways to close the roads or partially close the roads for the bigger items, the fly tipping or the tyres, is an ongoing issue. It was actually brought to county as a motion yesterday. We are aware it's a problem, and trying to coordinate those times is actually quite difficult, getting the staff there at the same time as the closures. But we'll look into it. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 more questions, then we're going to go for a comfort break, because we are running out of time, and we could all do with a short break, I imagine. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Councillor Wakeford. Many of you here have probably heard of Richard Fitzgilbert. Richard Fitzgilbert was the half-brother of William of Normandy. He was one of the 5 superior knights that led the Norman conquests. He was guardian to William of Normandy. He ruled England many multiples of time longer than Oliver Cromwell. Sorry, I can repeat it should you wish me to. He endowed St. Neots Priory. He was one of the biggest landowners in the country. When William returned to Normandy, which was most of the time to defend his possessions.
Councillor Chapman, you're running out of time. Where's your question?
What happened was Richard Fitzgilbert was Chief Justiciar of all England. So effectively, he was the absolute ruler of England for many years. Now, I think that this is someone, he spent the end of his life in the Priory, which he endowed, with lands as far as Camborne, big areas of South Cambridgeshire, Northamptonshire, Bedfordshire. He spent the end of his life in St. Neots Priory as a monk. And he and his wife, I'm not sure how that works with a monk, but they were buried within the grounds of St. Neots Priory. heritage is so important to bring tourism in and economic activity.
Councillor Chapman, I'm still not hearing a question.
Market Square redeveloped. Councillor Wakeford is quite aware of this, but we had a Market Square developed, and guess who's not mentioned? The most important person that's probably ever been associated with Huntingdonshire, and Oliver Cromwell would not have existed. I can explain why, but I haven't got.
I'm going to have to stop you there, Councillor Chapman.
Without
Wakeford, would you
the
like to come back
involvement
on that?
of Richard Fitzgilbert. And I would like to know what is going to be done about celebrating this person on the Market Square in St Neots, along with other lesser names.
Councillor Wakeford.
Thank you, Chair. I do think I'm familiar with the question Councillor Chapman was getting at there. I think the question is around the names inscribed on some of the stones in the Market Square, and how we came up with the names there. I think he and others in the chamber will be pleased to know that they weren't simply dreamed up by ourselves or my favourite people from St Neots. We took advice from local stakeholders, took nominations, including from the town council, including from the museum, and we've got a number of figures referenced. Obviously, St Neots has a tremendously proud history, and there are more great members of St Neots than we can inscribe on stones, but I'm sure the town council and others will be open to exploring other ways of celebrating other characters from their history in other ways locally. And as ever, if the Market Towns team can support them with that, we're pleased to do so.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Burke. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chair. If my microphone works. Quick question for Councillor Sanderson, just regarding the next set of papers for the preferred options draft local plan. I just wondered when that would be going through scrutiny.
Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Burke said, our next set of papers regarding local plan will be the preferred options draft, and we're bringing that to scrutiny and cabinet in the autumn, looking possibly towards October or November, but of course the exact timing will depend on the outcomes of the key evidence documents that are not yet complete, as of course they will strongly shape both the package and the sites that are included, and also the policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for all your questions. And we shall take a short 5-minute comfort break. Thank you. Okay, hopefully all well rested. Okay, so we're going to turn to page 15 of our agenda. So this is discretionary charges in planning, infrastructure and public protection. I'd like to again invite the Executive Councillor of Finance and Resources, Councillor Brett Mickleborough, to present the item and propose the recommendations within the report.
Good evening, Chair, members and any watching audience. The discretionary charges in planning, infrastructure and public protection report in the pack covers the detail in a thorough manner and is relatively easy to read and digest. I will take it as read and this evening focus on highlighting the key points that arise. We continue to make progress on the financial running of the council and taking a more commercial view on discretionary operational charges, which in turn can help deliver service improvements. An example of that is seeing One Leisure heading into surplus while also increasing membership and attendance numbers. But we must be careful of the risk of unintended consequences with all and any such charging. Following the Planning Clear review, there have been suggestions that we are missing out on opportunities to generate income and prevent the burden of elements of planning activity falling onto council taxpayers. There has been new legislation with the introduction of a mandatory biodiversity net gain, or BNG, requirement placed on new developments, and a monitoring responsibility placed on HDC. The paper puts two considerations in front of us. Do we stick with the current fee structure for planning, or do we look to take the advice and reshape the charges? As the finance portfolio holder, one of my concerns is the longer term impact that near-term activities have on our finances. For example, will a contract signed now have future compounded impact or lock us into activities that will become a financial burden? Or the opposite, is there something we don't do that will cost us money down the line? As such, I consider that we should be reviewing and updating these fees. There are 6 specific fees listed in the paper, and those are laid out in a way that means I don't need to repeat them. But the major driver is biodiversity net gain, so I will explain this a little further. I have heard the comment from members around SIL and local government reorganisation. Please can we ensure we spend the SIL money to ensure Huntingdonshire infrastructure improvements, cash, doesn't get lost into a unitary authority. The expedited timing of this proposal in this paper is along that theme. When the biodiversity loss has occurred in district, we want to keep the resulting improvement in district. We already have a waiting list for potential habitat banks, and if we don't move soon, we will risk this opportunity passing elsewhere. Due to how our constitution works and the calendar is scheduled, if we pause, then this is the middle of October before we can next bring anything forward. I see my pretty picture has arrived already. When a new building is constructed, like a house or commercial unit, it is likely, perhaps even certain, that some natural space is lost. Biodiversity net gain is now written into law and means that developers must leave the natural environment they have built on in a better condition than before they started. They must provide a 10% net gain or boost to biodiversity, not just replacing anything lost, but improving on it. Simplistically, HDC must, before development, check and assess the habitat plans, make sure the promised changes are made, keep checking the land for 30 years to confirm it has been successful. The assessment is undertaken by a qualified ecologist who gives the site a biodiversity value using the DEFRA biodiversity metric. The score considers things like the habitat type, for example, a wildflower meadow versus a brownfield industrial site, the condition, the size, and the location of the site. A fictional example is that a grassland field might be worth 10 biodiversity units. After development, the house and driveway remove that habitat. The developer now owes the 10 biodiversity units lost plus 10% extra, 1 unit, a total of 11 biodiversity units. How do you deliver those 11 units? You can do one of 3 things. You can create or enhance habitats on the development site, known as on-site BNG, buy biodiversity units from a local habitat bank, known as off-site BNG, or in exceptional cases, as a last resort, use the government's National Biodiversity Credit Scheme. So what is a habitat bank? A habitat bank is a nature zone that can sell biodiversity net gain credits. Some developers can't do all the habitat work on site, so they will buy BNG units from habitat banks. We want these habitat banks in Huntingdonshire, not elsewhere. This is a large part of why we are acting so quickly. But also, if I look at and consider our broader district, I think we have the potential of doing a little bit more than that. And while it's not in the paper for this evening, and probably someone's going to be upset at me for going slightly off-piste, I think we've got a fantastic opportunity to look at that from a commercial point of view and use other people's need for BNG to our own advantage. If we delay for what is in the paper, then developers who are waiting for this might go elsewhere for credits, despite having taken biodiversity out of the Huntingdonshire environment. Monitoring BNG means sending officers out to inspect sites, reading ecology reports, working with landowners, managing legal agreements, and doing this for potentially many sites over 30 years. As the finance portfolio holder, this 30-year commitment is significant and could add up quickly. I want to avoid my future successor in whatever unitary council we end up in being hit with charges to their MTFS because we didn't tackle the challenge. I've also heard people say to me, why do we have to manage this? Well, the 3 pictures on the screen are example of pre-BNG failed restoration, all of which are 2,000 metres from my house. And the A14 one, I think it's come round in the national press now for the 2nd time. So we have some very tangible examples of what happens if people aren't keeping a check on these things. So what happens next? The paper proposes we make fee changes that will further improve our financial resilience and thereby give opportunity for ongoing service improvement in planning. It does so by the fair premise that developers should pay appropriate fees as part of the planning process. These fees should be set to a level which avoids extra cost to council budgets or residents, but it is mindful of the law of unintended consequences. The next stage is to complete drafting the BNG template, work to set our fee calculator in such a way that it doesn't unfairly penalise or reward one size or type of development, hold a planning agent and developer forum to discuss the changes, then review and implement any required discretionary charges. At the recommendation of Overview and Scrutiny, we invited Councillor Jennings and Councillor Goulson to sense check the work so far. This meant that the officers could deep dive with people who have the background understanding of finance and planning, and therefore cover off commercial points and the options given and the alternatives, where we'd probably not want to air those in public to people who will be trying to negotiate price with us later. I will ask them, through you, Chair, to offer comment once I finish, rather than putting words into their mouths. So, the recommendation for the paper is to endorse the review of discretionary charges within planning, infrastructure and public protection, and to delegate authority to the head of planning, infrastructure and public protection in consultation with the Section 151 officer and Executive Councillor for Finance and Resources to implement changes for the current financial year, which was also an important addition made from a comment made by Overview and Scrutiny, where that text hadn't been included. It implied that this would be delegated ad infinitum. Point B, to delegate the following to the head of planning, infrastructure and public protection in consultation with the Section 151 officer and the Executive Councillor for Finance and Resources for the current financial year: introduction of new fees, modification of existing fees, updating, adjusting of fees, waiving of fees. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mickleborough. So did you propose that report? Recommendations report? Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder for that? Councillor Sanderson, thank you. And then you mentioned Councillor Jennings and Councillor Goulson. Would you like to come back on those?
I would, Chair. Thank you, Chair. As shadow portfolio holder for planning, I agree with the discretionary charging. They're required and will need to be reviewed ongoing, as stated. A byproduct of these fees may well deliver efficiencies in planning as well as the finances spoken of. For example, applications for amendment fees will not only generate income but may help streamline throughput of these applications by first right time applications. However, as was spoken earlier, biodiversity net gain is going to be new and a massive challenge with long-term, i.e. 30-year monitoring requirement. And so getting it right now will ensure that it's not going to be an adverse impact on finances and resource going forward. So I will be supporting this paper and recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to come back on that? Councillor Sanderson?
Thank you, Chair. Thank Councillor Mickleborough for his presentation, and for Councillor Goulson for his very important and well researched speech there. I think it was very good. Scrutiny panel that met and discussed this. Of course, this is mainly a finance thing, but also affects planning greatly. And of course, one of the recommendations, or one of the many recommendations from the planning peer review, recommendation I think is R7F, which actually requires a planning service to develop a long-term 3-year improvement programme centering around income generation, among many other things. So, of course, requirement across all our services to minimise costs and maximise income. We're all very much focused on that. And so, of course, a full review of our discretionary charges is required, which we've now undertaken. And as Councillor Mickleborough outlined from February 2024, all major developments have to B&G and mandatory for minor developments as well. And of course, developers need to provide us as local planning authority with a copy of their site monitoring reports at intervals, and this will take up resource. We need to review and sign these off, these ecological monitoring reports, and that will require officer time and expertise. So I think it's only right that we do this. We're also under recommendation R8 of the peer review looking to improve the pre-application service. We already have a very good service, but that's again linked to income generation. So I think reviewing these is entirely the right thing to do, and I support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hodgson-Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to flag a few questions I have around the concept of encouraging habitat banks across Huntingdonshire. The paper talks about monitoring costs and charging for monitoring of habitat banks, but it doesn't say anything about how one should encourage and progress and approve where habitat banks are. And in my view, they should form an integral part of our local plan in terms of where they're located, because they can be used strategically to prevent urban sprawl, and they can be used strategically to ensure not only that we enhance the biodiversity within Huntingdonshire, but that we can remedy some of the deprivation or biodiversity deprivation that has been achieved or has been incurred through existing developments, and therefore they need to be fully integrated into our planning process. And I'd like to know whether that has been taken fully into account as to how that can be managed and monitored for the benefit of the district and for our future successor unitary as well.
So you're talking to the finance person, not the planning person. But I know we have the head of planning sitting behind me. Her boss is to my right, and the planning portfolio holder is in front of me. They've all heard that. I think you make valid points. I would hope they take them all on board, and they would look for further contributions along the same lines.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just echoing the point Councillor Coulson made. My shadow cabinet member for planning, as much as Councillor Mickelwood doesn't believe that exists. Completely support this. I don't believe the residents should be paying for things that the developers are doing. So I fundamentally support this proposal that's in front of us. It would be remiss of me to say I'm disappointed that the recommendations that went forward from overview and scrutiny weren't followed through completely. But that's just a very minor point. But by and large, well, to be fair, I think it would have gone to the cross-party working that Councillor Conboy mentioned in her State of District address. But as I said, largely we're supportive of this proposal and we'll be voting in favour of it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. You want to come back on that?
Just to make one point, our constitution, as it is known currently flawed, makes as much reference to unicorns as it does the shadow cabinet.
Okay, thank you. All right, sounds like we're ready to move to a vote then. So all in favour, raise your hands. That looks pretty unanimous to me. Happy with that? Okay. Have we got any against? Abstentions? One abstention. Okay. Right, thank you. Welcome back. Okay, item number 10. This is the turning to your page 31 of your agenda pack. So I'd like to invite the Executive Councillor for Finance and Resources, who's obviously standing there. Sorry. To present the outcome in respect of Treasury and management activity, including investment and borrowing activity and Treasury performance.
Good evening again. So I'm pleased to present the Treasury Management Outturn Report for 2024-25, which reports on how this council has managed its investments, borrowing and capital financing over the last financial year. This report and my commentary this evening satisfies the statutory requirements under the Local Government Act and meets the CIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management and Prudential Code for Capital Finance. Let me recall the core objectives of our Treasury function: to ensure we always have enough cash to meet day-to-day obligations, to invest surplus funds wisely, earning a fair return but without undue risk, to borrow only when necessary to support capital expenditure. As usual, we have met CIPFA's recommended report requirements this year. This includes a Treasury strategy approved in February 2024, a mid-year review to Council in December, quarterly updates to Cabinet, and today's final outturn report for Council. All reports have been reviewed by the Overview and Scrutiny Panel Performance and Growth, to which I thank them for their diligence, while member training was delivered in October to aid effective scrutiny. Reviewing our capital expenditure and borrowing numbers shows that in 2024-25, capital expenditure totaled £16.9 million, which is under the revised budget of £31.9 million. This is primarily due to rephasing of capital projects. Around £3.3 million of this expenditure was financed by borrowing, meaning the vast majority was funded from internal or external capital resources. Sounds slightly counterintuitive, but we did not undertake any new external borrowing in 24-25. Instead, we continued our policy of internal borrowing using existing reserves to avoid locking in currently high interest rates. As a result, we remain under-borrowed compared to our capital financial requirement by some £38 million. This is an area that can cause confusion and is the difference between accounting borrowing, shown in the capital financing requirement, and cash borrowing, which is taking out a loan from the Public Works Loan Board or another lender. Our cash or external borrowing is via the Public Works Loan Board over long time periods and at low fixed interest rates. I suspect we will not see this level of low interest rate again, especially noting that today's announcement on inflation having risen. Our capital financing requirement, which reflects the Council's underlying need to borrow, remains stable at 72.9 million, a level consistent with our long-term capital strategy and within our authorised borrowing limits. This position is acceptable, and we have built the flexibility to offer future resilience. Looking at our investment performance shows we have maintained an average of 71.5 million of internal funds, achieving an average investment return of 4.45% that generated 3.9 million in investment income, more than double our original forecast of 1.6 million. It is important to remember that when the budget was finalised in January 2024, the bank base rate was expected to fall from its peak of 5.25% to 3.75% inside the financial year, where instead it only fell to 4.5%. The bank base rate is a borrowing rate, not an investment rate, and therefore a return of around 3%. And therefore a return of around 3% was expected rather than the 4.45% achieved. Our investments were made primarily in low-risk instruments, mostly the Government Debt Management Office, or DMO. It is very difficult to forecast the rates that the DMO offer. Whilst it fits our risk appetite, which is relatively low risk, the downside can be that interest earned may be less predictable or less appealing than the money market funds, although that has not been the case over the last year. Predicting the rate accurately is difficult because the DMO did not exist in its current form when interest rates were last as high as they are now, which means there is no usable historic data, while the rate is also heavily influenced by factors impacting on central government's need to borrow, which has also been unpredictable. What is key to note is that our Treasury investments conformed to the Council's approved strategy, and we experienced no liquidity issues through the year. We remained fully compliant with all of our financial risk management and prudential indicators. Borrowing remained well below both the authorised and operational boundaries. Financing costs represented 15% of our net revenue stream, in line with expectations. We met all credit structure limits set out in our strategy, and our portfolio rating remains strong at AA-, and our current liquidity buffer ensures we can respond swiftly to unexpected events without needing to borrow. The commercial investment strategy, including returns from our property holdings and the CCLA Property Fund, generated net income of 3.1 million in 2024-25. This income represented around 13% of our net revenue budget. That said, we remain alert to the risks of voids and falling asset values, particularly with vacancies at Fareham, Stonehill and the Rowley Arts Centre, impacting our interest cover ratio, which dipped to 1.8. The review of the commercial investment strategy is ongoing, although progress has slowed a little bit due to the distraction of local government reorganisation. It is very briefly worth placing all of this in the economic context. Inflation fluctuated across the year, beginning at 2.3%, dipping mid-year and then rising to 2.8% by February. Bank of England base rate fell from 5.25% to 4.5%, as already mentioned. Global events, including somewhat unexpected tariff shifts and geopolitical risks, continue to create uncertainty in all economies. While we expect interest rates will fall further, the pace is uncertain, and this reinforces the importance of a measured approach. Chair, this report demonstrates that the Council's approach to Treasury management in 2024-25 was secure, prudent and effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. We have a question from Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Chair. I speak from my mythical position as the Shadow Cabinet Member for Finance. I'd like to thank the Executive Council for the report. Sometimes when these reports go through scrutiny, or other kinds of reports go through scrutiny, and there are very few questions, it's either because members haven't read the report or, heaven forfend, don't understand the report. The alternative, of course, is that the reports have been so well written by officers that they answer all of the questions that you might possibly want to think within the body of the report itself. So I think we should put on record our thanks particularly to Oliver for preparing these reports, very clear and comprehensive throughout the year and the final report as well. I just want to pick up three takeaways, I think, for those who are not as financially literate as Oliver and our Executive Councillor. And I think it's things that members should really understand about this report. I think it's good to know that the Council has complied with all of its prudential indicators, and I think that members should make sure that they understand that the Council is doing that. I think it's reassuring to members that we're using internal borrowing to finance the CFR, which is mitigating the need to go to market and borrow externally. And I think it's pleasing again that for the third year running since I've been standing here, that our interest receipts have far exceeded that we've had in the budget, which has given the administration a lot of money to play with in excess of where they thought they'd be. And I think it's worth recognising that, even though perhaps the way that money is being spent, the priorities might differ this side of the chamber to the other. Although I think Councillor Taylor may agree with some of our plans. But yeah, just thanks again to Oliver for the report, and we'll, if we're voting for it, we'll vote for it.
You want to come back on that?
Yeah, just to thank you for your comments. I make the comment, but I think we all know our constitution isn't fit for purpose and undoubtedly does need those points put into it. The Treasury Management Report is for me to be a factual statement of where we are, and that I agree completely. Oliver does a sterling job. His creation of the interest that is coming, the balance of the risks, and where we find ourselves, because it's revenue funds that are created, should be absolutely discussed in a separate environment rather than necessarily within the Treasury report. But thank you for your comments.
Councillor Godo.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to again agree with the comments made earlier about Oliver and his presentation of the Treasury report. It's excellent, and I think it's quite easy. I take exception to people not reading these excellent reports, not on overview and scrutiny, certainly. Thank you.
Thank you. We've read them all.
I'd also come back on the report point. So I think the Treasury management side of things, the CIPFA requirements have helped craft a really good report that makes it easy for people to understand. What they've really got to do is to help everyone out with some of the revenue reporting requirements. I think it was Councillor Hodgson-Jones made the comment a few meetings ago just about the level of complexity of somebody coming to our finances and looking at it and going, well, I see £23 million, and then you're talking about 82 million, and then your positive numbers are minus and so on. Now, we can't do anything about that. We have to report as we report, because that is what we are expected to do. But my goodness me, I think we need to have a conversation with CIPFA and some of the financial authorities about making it easier to understand.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hodgson-Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to rise anyway before the executive portfolio holder mentioned my name. The complexity of these reports makes it difficult even for financially minded people to fully understand them. And that might explain the level of questioning or the level of scrutiny, but also what the council's strategy and risk appetite and investment return expectations are. I have one criticism on our treasury management strategy, which is the level of our treasury investments that are in treasury funds and short term. Now, I'm not suggesting that we move large tracts of our investments into long-term funds, but you can see the difference in the return between short-term money market rates investments and loans to other bodies, even if they are only 1-year loans. And therefore, what I would like our treasury function to look at is whether there are ways of increasing the yield from our cash treasury. It shows that we've got 65 million in cash available within 3 months, but we don't spend 65 million within 3 months, whether that be on capital or on revenue services. And therefore, there must be scope to move some of that money into longer dated investments with higher yields that would provide more income generation for this council, which can be used. And also, there is the potential to look at our investment strategy overall and look at ways in which the council can do things using its assets, its physical assets, its land assets, to generate revenue in ways that actually meet other expectations and other needs of the council and the area. Now, I accept that given where we are with local government review, that may be difficult to implement in the next 2 years, but it's something that maybe we should be looking at as something we can take into the new unitary when we know what that is. But if we don't work up those plans in advance, we won't be able to achieve that benefit for the local people.
Can we come back on that?
Absolutely. I'll mention at my next catch up with the Section 151 officer the point around longer term investments. And in terms of use of assets, absolutely, that's Alex Gees from CIPFA is the person who's been helping us work on elements of the commercial investment strategy. He has indeed been looking through our portfolio of land. He's got some interesting ideas about some things which may or may not be possible there. Those will be coming through as part of the report over the course of hopefully the next month or two. And some of those I think we probably want to do without necessarily waiting for LGR, because otherwise there are opportunities there which would benefit Huntingdonshire that wouldn't be taken.
Okay, thank you very much. The recommendations ask us to note the contents of this report. So unless anyone's got any objection, I suggest we move on, unless are we all agreed? Nice, all right, thank you. Item 11, so if you turn to page 71 of your packs, then Councillor Ferguson, Executive Councillor for Resident Services and Corporate Performance. May I invite you to present the report regarding Corporate Performance Indicators 25-26 and propose recommendations within that report?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure members will be relieved that I don't intend to run you through all 35 KPIs unless you want me to, partly because it's past my bedtime, and secondly because this is the 4th time I've presented this paper to council, and so there's been plenty of opportunity to feed back into it. What we normally do is we bring these targets to the quarterly performance report in September, where we kind of sneak them in, and then Councillor Martin and Councillor Jennings can spend the rest of the year telling me the target's too easy. But what we decided to do this year, led by our data insights coordinator, who is Mr. Clifton Atfield, Mr. Sloper, who's the head of policy performance and emergency planning, is we took these to ONS in April to give them a chance to feed back on the targets and make sure we were setting sufficiently challenging targets, but not targets so challenging that it would be demoralising to staff. And we took the first draft of these KPIs, and that ONS committee came back and told us in no uncertain terms that some of the targets were too easy. What happened was the next day, Mr. Clifton Atfield was on the phone to all of the heads of services and negotiated with them the more challenging targets that were suggested by ONS. And I think without exception, we've implemented all of those in the set of KPIs that you see here. So last year we had 32 KPIs. We've increased that by 3 to 35 this year. Of the existing targets, 5 were increased, and mindful of the fact that targets which are too challenging are demotivating, we also took the decision to decrease 2 targets, and we have 4 yet to be set. I think from my time as a runner, I used to be a runner, and like Councillor Allburn and both Councillor Taylors, I often spent time on Saturday mornings doing the religious cult known as Park Run. Challenging targets can indeed increase performance, but targets which are too difficult are demotivating and make us go backwards. So setting these targets appropriately is very important. I'm very grateful to ONS as usual for their robust criticism, and I hope that we've got a set of targets that we can use to drive performance in the coming year. So thank you very much, and I recommend them to you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Have I got a seconder for that proposal? Thank you, Councillor Gleddon. Okay, everyone got questions? Councillor Martin?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson, for his initial speech. And again, thank you for bringing it to ONS and listening to us. For the last 3 years, we've been asking to see these KPIs earlier, to have a say on them, and for them to be changed in between based on what we say at ONS. So I do appreciate that we have been listened to on that one, and it was brought back to us, and the changes that we suggested were made. So we really do appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'll be voting for these KPIs and the corporate performance indicators this evening. Not necessarily because they're the KPIs that I would be wanting to look at, not necessarily because they're the KPIs and the levels in which I would want to set, but we've got to be realistic that this is the Joint Administration's corporate plan. These are your KPIs that you now have to deliver on. We've seen for the last 3 years a lot of green on these reports, even though, as I said in my State of District address, performance has gone down on 18 of the 32 that were there at the end of last year. So I look forward to seeing more yellows and some more ambers, to be honest, because that means that we've set challenging targets, which our staff are working towards. A yellow target isn't bad. It means that we've set something that's challenging, and staff and our officers and our employees are working towards that. So I look forward to seeing more ambers, but unfortunately, I do think there is going to be a lot of green still. But I will be voting for this evening, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. So most of the vote then. So can I get a show of hands, all in favour? Looks pretty unanimous to me. Against, abstentions? Nope. Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, item number 12. This is the overview and scrutiny annual report. Can I ask Councillor Hunt to come and present?
Thank you, Chair. Overview and scrutiny on our council has been on a long road over the past 3 years. Structural change and improvement to processes as large and complex as ONS take time and a lot of hard work. This year's Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report is a milestone for us to reflect on that journey. When I first became a councillor 3 years ago and got to grips with our scrutiny process, it felt at the time that it was nothing more than a rubber stamp and a conveyor belt of basic cabinet decisions. So much work has happened since then. This has been driven forward by the ONS firm chairs and vice chairs, panel members, and the officers supporting them. And I'd like to take a moment to put on record my thanks for all of the officers who have supported the Overview and Scrutiny panels over the past municipal year. A lot of work has happened since 2022, but the last municipal year has really shown these efforts paying off. The overarching goal of our efforts is to build a scrutiny process which allows member input to policies at a formative stage, allows genuine recommendations to be made to decision makers, and has a work programme driven by members exploring topics that add value to our council and its services. I'm pleased to say that over the past year we have seen changes made to when papers are considered by panels, allowing them to genuinely feed in and contribute to proposals that are still in development, as the Environment, Communities and Partnerships panel was able to do with the operation of the Health and Wealth Building Strategy. Significant numbers of recommendations being made to Cabinet and being accepted by Cabinet, as seen as part of the decision to adopt HVO fuel, among other examples over the past year. And the first member-led items coming to scrutiny, including the Health and Wealth Building Strategy again, returning to scrutiny as requested, and other items such as the right to grow imminently in the pipeline thanks to the workshops held earlier this year. I think it's fair to say that's a sign that we're going in the right direction and the hard work is paying off. I'd like to thank again everyone who supported this process over the past year, as that support has been vital to get us here. So we've made massive progress, but we're not done yet. This process has been a journey and there is still more to do. As we continue to embed this new way of working over the next municipal year, we need to keep on reviewing what we're doing and seeing where we can continue to improve. Myself, Councillor Gladdo, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Pitt look forward to doing that with the panel members over the next year. But for a moment, I'm glad we've been able to reflect on the amazing work we've all managed to do so far. Thank you, and I present the report to Council to note.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hunt. Unless there's any observations on that, we shall move on to item 13. So this is Cambridgeshire and Peterborough combined authority changes to members' allowances. Can I ask Councillor Comboy?
Thank you very much. You'll be pleased to know this will be very short. You've already had a paper in front of you which outlines the changes to the members' allowances scheme that the Huntingdonshire District Council representatives that are appointed to the combined authority in terms of how they will be paid. Following a decision by the CPCA board on the 4th of June, the CPCA will now directly fund allowances for members serving on its overview and scrutiny and audit and governance committees. So in short, instead of us paying that allowance, it will come from the combined authority's own fund. So that makes an annual saving to us of around £3,234. Travel and subsistence costs will still come from us. And the councillors' members' allowance scheme will need to probably be updated to reflect those changes. But this is to note the removal of those payments from our budget and that we will in time look at the allowances scheme accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a seconder on that? Councillor Sollerson, thank you. Okay, we'll move to a vote. All in favour? Oh, I put down a little V on there which says, oh no. Okay, all right. I'll put the V in the wrong place. Item 14, this is our standing item where we get the opportunity to ask questions of CPCA on the report of the meetings are summarised on page 121 to 142 in your pack. Are there any questions? Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much, Chair. A question to Councillor Comboy as our representative on the Combined Authority Board. Papers were released today which show that the new Mayor Bristow is looking to save the 31 bus that goes to Ramsey within Huntingdonshire, as well as making some other changes. I've been made aware through a screenshot from a WhatsApp group in Camborne that Councillor Comboy's colleague, Lib Dem colleague at Cambridgeshire County Council has a veto on the board, has said that she'll do all she can to stop this plan. What will she be doing to ensure that the 31 bus is saved in Huntingdonshire?
Councillor Comboy.
Thank you, Chair. I may need to bring my colleague who sits on the Transport and, oh God, what does TIC stand for? Just Transport Committee, thank you. I was going to say, it used to be the TIC. Can I just say that that paper has come late. I haven't had the opportunity to have a briefing with officers on it, and certainly we will be doing. My understanding is that other leaders are equally somewhat surprised at the short notice that this has arrived, and certainly I think we'll want more information, but I don't know whether Councillor Wakeford may be able to add a little more detail, if that's okay, Chair.
If that's in order, Chair, yes. So on behalf of all of us on Huntingdonshire District Council at the Transport Committee last week, at which I was rather intrigued to discover as I arrived, Councillor John Nish sitting at the table with a label that explained he was representing Huntingdonshire District Council, but he was in fact there in capacity on behalf of the overview and scrutiny panel and was from HDC, so there hadn't been a coup that I'd missed. But at that committee, I did express our disappointment that the Mayor, despite our request at board previously, hadn't brought forward any proposals to save the bus connection for Ramsey, and urge that that be rectified. I have not read papers for the Combined Authority Board yet in detail released, the additional paper released today either, but my belief from what Councillor Martin has referenced, not that I'm familiar with the content of Camborne WhatsApp groups, is that a criticism of the particular proposal may be because the proposal is trying to save one bus route by cutting a couple of others. And the point I think that was made at the Transport Committee was that the holistic impacts of cuts to routes that residents may be relying upon should be carefully considered in the round in the Combined Authority's budgetary position, rather than just trying to trade off, one route against another. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Simon-Taylor? You had a question? Yep. You had a
Sorry, Chair, I misheard. Yeah, thank you. Has the executive leader established whether there is a coherent strategy basis of where in our district the mayor does and does not seem to want free parking? Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Conboy?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I'm not sure I can answer that as diplomatically as I would like to. I certainly have challenged the mayor. In fact, in our very first meeting, you will know that his manifesto commitment was that he wanted to introduce free parking in St Neots and Peterborough. He has consistently gone back to that commitment. I have consistently challenged him that I would expect my residents in Huntingdon and St Ives equally to be hoping for a free car parking offer if he was to do it for St Neots. We are in discussion at officer level to understand what the mayor's aspirations might be and what funding the mayor may or may not have at his disposal, and equally what the governance arrangements would have to be for such a proposal to come forward, because it isn't as simple as the mayor makes an offer and we just say yes. There is a proper governance process that we would have to unpack. So I'm not sure there is a coherence in the sense of the wider issues that we have. I have made it very clear to the mayor, and so I just want to clarify on the basis of the speech I gave earlier. I haven't said no, because actually it's not mine to say no, it would be ours collectively, but I have made the case that there will be other areas that would be very keen to be included if there was an offer on the table. Thank you.
Councillor Hunt?
Thank you, Chair. And my question is to Councillor Conboy as board representative. Since it was introduced, the under 25s Tiger Bus Pass has been a lifeline for young people in our area, helping them access work, education, training and leisure by letting them travel on buses for £1. Just under 20% of under 25s in Huntingdonshire have a Tiger Pass based on the CPCA's data, which is a really big uptake for a scheme like that. And I think that's a really positive thing to call out. While the funding for the current Tiger scheme is due to end soon, the Mayor's newly proposed options for the pass absolutely slash the eligibility and usability of the pass from next spring, threatening to cut a lifeline for so many young people in my ward and across our district. As it stands, those options will preserve the pass in name only. What assurances can the leader give me that HCC representatives to the CPCA are fighting to protect the young people's Tiger Bus Pass from the Mayor's proposed cuts?
Chair, if I may, thank you very much, Councillor Hunt. I can assure you, and I'm looking to Councillor Wakeford too, that we are being vocal. There is going to be a fundamental challenge. The Mayor has decided not to raise a precept, which means that actually there is a financial pressure. So there will need to be tough political choices, I'm guessing, because in order to sustain some of those commitments, money may have to be found from elsewhere. I'm not clear what the proposal is to resolve that particular challenge, but it was picked up at the last board meeting and robustly challenged. And I think at the last transport meeting, there was certainly a challenge that said there was a desire to see alternative funding sources considered from across the whole of the pots that the Mayor has at his disposal across the combined authority. So I'm interested to see what comes forward, but certainly we will be advocating, as we will for other bus routes. The bus is an integral part for our communities, whether you're young, whether you don't have access to other transport or you're in a rural area, it makes a big difference. So we will be advocating strongly.
Thank you. Councillor Hassel?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So a question for the leader. Councillor Ferguson and myself met some time ago. Members will remember that I asked a question around value for money and combined authority. So we met with Rob Bridges to discuss. And I know that Rob often watches us. Whether he's still watching us now is very much open to debate. But he certainly expressed a great willingness to come and present to council and make us much more familiar than perhaps we are around what the CPCA is doing. So I just want to ask the leader whether we may consider asking Rob Bridges and or the mayor to come to this meeting just to give us an update on where we stand, because there's clearly some quite pertinent questions that would be better directed at the mayor rather than yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Hassel. That's a really helpful question. I will need some guidance from officers outside of the meeting just to check protocols, but I certainly think that there is probably an appetite from Mr. Bridge. He has been before us before in the past. Those of you who've been in this chamber for some time will remember he's visited, and I suspect that the new mayor might be quite keen to come and meet us. So I can't commit them. I will check the protocol. If we can't do it through a formal council meeting, we may well explore whether there are other suitable opportunities, but I will take that request back. Thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. This is, I have to come back on this car parking thing because it isn't about providing equality through car parking charges in St Ives and Huntingdon. It's about providing equality with St Neots with St Ives and Huntingdon, where in St Ives, for example, you have the guided bus car park, which is free to use, and you have Waitrose, where people parking in district council car parks can obtain a rebate. In Huntingdon, we have a multi-storey car park built by this council, which offers where customers in Sainsbury's are offered rebates of their car parking fees. We have no such arrangements in St Neots, and I have to say earlier on I was biting my tongue when the leader of the opposition was talking about car parking charges in St Neots, given that his colleague next to it was actually responsible for putting them up after a 2-year review, to the extent that half of our high street closed down. But I would like to ask the leader whether or not she is, as I believe the Mayor Paul Bristow is aware of these disparities and the equality that is needed to be brought to St Neots.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Again, Chair, through you, please. Certainly, I know that officers will continue to bring that forward. I think we've already provided an explanation about why there is a difference. I think it's a sort of technicality around the different functionalities of who charges and who rebates where. But I think I fully understand the original issue, which is that St Neots has a desire to see free car parking reintroduced, or certainly some sort of scheme that they believe would help and support St Neots. That's heard loud and clearly. The challenge will be taking it back to the mayor to look at those options, and then genuinely working out how we can do that within the framework also of a parking strategy, so that we create sustainable benefits for the town, not just a short-term win. But equally, I hear that a short-term win is highly desired, and I will take that away with me. Thank you.
And Councillor McAdam.
Thank you, Chair. Staying on the theme of free parking, wherever it may or may not take place, if we actually get to the point where we do have free parking, my question really is to the executive leader, where is he hoping to fund this from? Because if he puts it on on his precept, then that means that people who don't drive are actually, but through the precept, going to be charged for parking, and that's not fair. So do we have a steer on that, please?
Again, Chair, through you, Councillor McAdam, thank you very much. We don't have clarity about where the Mayor is going to take this money from. That's one of the challenges, and that's one of the things we're working through with officers, because even if we then can quantify options and cost them, what we don't understand is where the resource will come from to make that payment. This council will be incredibly aware that the car parking revenue is an integral part of our current budget formula. So if we are to look at a change or a reduction to that, we will have to find an alternative source. And that, again, causes us to worry about what that might be and how we might do that. This is something the Mayor, I think, perhaps was less aware of when making that commitment. And so therefore, it's something we're working through at officer level. I will be pleased to come back and update you when I know more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your questions and your answers. Item 15 is the use of special urgency provisions, 24-25. So turning to item number 15 on your agenda, the Council's constitution requires the executive leader to submit annual reports to the Council on executive decisions which have been undertaken during the course of the year under special urgency proceedings. These are set out in the report contained within the agenda packs on pages 143 and 148. Are you all happy to note this information? Okay, thank you. Item 16 is the outcomes from committees and panels. So it's now the opportunity for members to raise any issues or asking questions arising from those recent meetings of council's committees and panels. Are there any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Item 17, variation to the membership of committees and panels. So can I invite the executive leader to report any changes to cabinet? And can I also invite group leaders to report any variations to the membership of committees and panels if necessary? Okay, all right. Thank you for your time. This brings us to the end of our agenda. So I can thank you for all your time and your patience, and good night.
Right.